Hi, this is Kent Gentleman, Mr. Nice Guy, Kent Gentleman, and you're watching my interview on newscott.com.
Alright, I'm back here with another New Scott interview, and today, in his studio apartment, we have Tommy Starr, wrestled for a short time as Kent Gentleman, and wrestled as something else earlier in his career too, but we'll get to that. How you doing today, Tommy?
Doing great, doing good.
Were you a fan of professional wrestling growing up?
Yep, I was. I mean, I think all little kids, they love wrestling, you know. I think I would have been about 5 when I first was really exposed to it, and it doesn't take long to grab you.
What was it about it that grabbed you?
Well, I mean, I believed it. You know, I thought it was real. I bought the storylines, hook, line, and sinker. You get a charismatic babyface in there that's the coolest person, and they're beating up the bad guys. I mean, it's everything that you want. Who
were some of your favorite guys to watch?
Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels. Those are three of the big ones.
What year did you start watching?
Oh man!
Like how old are you?
30.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably started watching when I was about 5.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so like 93.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So like WrestleMania 9, would that have been your first WrestleMania?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a lot of cable, so
okay.
You know, like I mean, I'd get what matches I could. You know, like I remember when WCW was kind of hitting their stride. You know, I only got Thunder on TBS. I didn't get TNT for Nitro, so Thunder was the big show.
I don't think we got TNT in Canada. We got it on TSN. Like it was played like the next day.
I don't know. I just know I missed out.
Yeah.
Now you tell me.
No, we got Raw live, but Nitro played after school for me on Tuesday afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You missed out on the New World Order.
Well, I mean, the odd time, and they'd play the little vignettes and things on Thunder, right?
Yeah.
You know, I get to see. But I mean, Thunder was really all I had as far as that, because Raw, that was on. What channel was Raw on?
TSN. TSN aired.
I couldn't have had TSN. I must not have had TSN.
Yeah, it was a special channel. Yeah. Like it's not like it is now.
Yeah.
What was it about those guys that you mentioned that drew you to them?
Kevin Nash, because he was the only 7-footer I had seen at that time. You know, like I was too young. I didn't really know a lot about Andre at the time. You know, Big Show hadn't done anything yet. So yeah, that was the biggest thing. I thought he was the coolest big dude out there.
Now, at what point in time did you think that it was something you could do? Yeah,
so that would have been, I was in grade 7, so I grew up in Middle Musquodoboit, and small little town, you know, small high school, and there was a kid when I was in grade 7, there was a kid in grade 11 or 12, and he was part of some local maritime wrestling, and it was the first time I'd ever been exposed to it. And so, oh man, he probably wouldn't be on anybody's radar. Justin Henley, he wrestled a couple matches, I think, as Havoc, and
for like CWF.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so CWF came to my high school, did a show.
J.L. Owsley?
No, Musquodoboit.
Oh, Musquodoboit. You said that. Sorry.
Come on, man.
They did shows at JL too. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So they did a show there, and you know, again, not really that educated in wrestling, and in grade 7, and you know, bought in hook, line, and sinker, and I thought this was just amazing, and this is the first time I'd seen a peer, even though he was a few years older than me, a peer doing it, and I was like, wow, you know, this might be something I can do too. So that would be the first time I really had that thought. Yeah.
At this time, was the CWF being run by Sledgehammer Spike and Chuck Martin?
I don't know if I know that Chuck was there.
Okay.
I was under the impression at that time that Sledge was the owner, runner, promoter, but who knows what that case actually was.
It was like Tony Armstrong on those shows, but he was Mr. Ego.
Tony wasn't on the show that came into my high school.
Okay.
Tony, I think, had just...
Was this 2001-ish?
So it was pretty early. Well, let's see. Yeah, it would be around 2001 because grade 6 I got out of grade 6 in 2000. So yeah, 2001. Because I know I'd heard of Tony, and I'd seen lots of tapes of Tony's stuff.
Sorry, Tony.
It is what it is. We all have a history. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I didn't get to meet Tony until 2005 or 2006.
Is that the Knick-Knack Friendship Center show?
Yes,
that's 2005.
Yeah, he doesn't remember me. He didn't, because when I ran into him at the gym, I introduced myself.
I didn't remember you either. To be fair.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So did you didn't attend any like independent wrestling shows? Like, did you go to Grand Prix or Real Action or anything back then?
I didn't. I remember getting so pumped up about Real Action Wrestling, because I was I didn't get to go to the shows, but I remember Channel 8 was our TV guide channel in Halifax, and I'd go to my dad's and I'd be looking at the TV guide, and they'd play these ads for Real Action Wrestling. Mm-hmm. And I used to think these guys are the biggest stars because they're on TV, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's that was a pretty big deal. I mean, and they ran so much. But yeah, didn't get to go to the shows, but I definitely knew about it. Definitely was excited. That's what kind of painted the picture in my mind of kind of almost a hierarchy of who the good wrestlers were out there, right? Your Cowboys, your Garys, your Petes, those guys.
Did you watch the shows when they were on Eastland Television?
No, because the TV in wrestling just didn't work out that well, I guess. Because again, I don't know what nights did they air. You'll be able to tell me.
I'm gonna guess and say Tuesday, but that could be wrong.
Yeah, see, Saturday and Sunday were the only days I was in Halifax.
Okay.
Seeing my dad, every second weekend, right? Yeah. So that's when I was in the city. So no, I just got those little clips on Channel 8.
Yeah. So when you decided to start, when did you decide to start wrestling? When did you decide that this is something like you're going to do? You said somebody, it was your buddy in high school, but when did you decide that you were going to give it a shot?
Well, it was at that show when they came to my high school. I don't know who I talked to get me to. It might have been Justin, and he got him to introduce me to Sledge, and he basically started saying, "Yeah, I can give you some training and whatever." So that kind of started the ball rolling. Yeah.
Did you actually train with Spike?
I mean, if you want to call it training.
I'm going to use that term loosely. Yeah, did you do what he termed as training?
Very loosely. I mean,
what did he do with you?
So he had a ring. It was a very heavy ring. I remember that setting that heavy ring up, but
it was big too, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, I don't know if it was what the actual footage on it was, but
it was bigger than
I remember the first class I had was showed me how to lock up, and I'm thinking back, he actually showed me how to lock up correctly ish, as far as where the hand positioning was, so that's good. He showed me an arm bar or to lock up, like a straight arm bar, which got me into trouble years later. I was wrestling in a match, and I had a guy lock up, and I hooked his arm, and he goes, wrong side. I'm like, what? I had his left arm, but he wanted me to hook him this way. Yeah. Anyway, stupid. Yeah, so there was that. A couple classes later, maybe even the second class, he couldn't get to the ring that day, so he showed me some wrestling holds in his kitchen. Yeah. I'm not trying to bury a Sledge if you ever see this, but that's life, man. That's what happened. Yeah. He's very quick to show me his photos and scrapbook of times where he toured with Edge and Christian and these things like that. And so, again, I was grade 7, I was very gullible and thought, wow, this guy has rubbed elbows with superstars kind of thing, right? So.
Yeah, and that's the same way he got like Tony and those guys. Spike used to be the security guard for Real Action Wrestling at Exhibition Park, and he would always bring that photo album you just talked about with him, and he showed it to Tony and Tony's friends. There was another guy, Scott Phoenix, that wrestled with Chuck as well, or Spike as well, and that's how Tony felt for the same thing. He saw Edge and Christian, he was like, oh, this guy must know what he's talking about, right?
Yep. Yeah, so it wasn't too long after that my mom pulled the plug on that, and it was just like, nope, we're not giving this guy any more money at all. And I don't know how much it was we paid. I think it was mom. I think she paid like $500 up to that point, or maybe it was. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I don't know what the initial price was, but I think she had paid close to $500 or something. And anyway, so that was the end of that. However, during that time, I did get to wrestle my first match. You, Scott, you alluded to it earlier. You said, what was some of your other names? My very first wrestling name, you guys will probably all get a chuckle out of this, was the Herring Choker. Yeah, so they put me in like, the hip waders and the old, I could have been right out there with the buys,
Yeah.
I looked like
a big yellow suit.
Yeah, big yellow suit, and had a mask on, and it was a mixed tag match. Sledge was special guest referee. Chuck was the dude on the other side. And there was two girls, like Stinging Butterfly and something. I'm not sure.
Is one of them the Rebel's daughter?
No.
No?
No.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I know Sonny. Yeah.
So, is that a real name?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so that was my first match. I don't think I had any other matches for CWF before that kind of fell apart. And then through that, speaking of the Rebel, some people call him Stanley, some people call him Jerry. I always call him Jerry.
I think that's his real name, Jerry.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah, because his family still calls him Stanley.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird.
Maybe it's not.
It's like a 50-50.
Yeah.
It's like, Stanley.
Yeah.
Love that guy. Best guy in the world as far as someone to give you the shirt off their back and help you out. He's seen that I loved wrestling. He said, you know what, I'm not even going to charge you. I lived about half hour from his house at the time. He lived in Upper Musquodoboit and I was in Middle Musquodoboit. It was about 25-minute drive, half hour there. Anyway, and he just did everything he could to show me what he knew. He was professionally trained. He was trained by Big Stephen Pettipaw. He went through his school. I believe he was the class right after Kurgan. And so there was in his class there was Soaring Eagle. I'm trying to remember some of the other guys that were there. I know that Todd the Bod.
This was in like early 90s?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Okay, because Kurgan was debuted in like 92 or 3 or something like that.
Yeah,
Maybe even before that.
Big Steven trained Kurgan.
Yeah.
And he was, because Kurgan was still doing some like helping out with Rebels class a little bit and things like that.
The only reason I know that is because I've got Kurgan's debut on tape when he came out as a manager for some Rip Rogers maybe.
Okay. Yeah. And so he. So that was a bit of his class. His story. Not that, you'll have to get him for an interview, but it's kind of interesting because he.
I think he likes me very much.
Like I say, he's a nice guy. I think him and his dad would drive like 2.5 hours each way, like 4 or 5 nights out of the week. I'm not even joking. Like for doing that for like months because he wanted to wrestle. He wanted to do it. So I always really respect that, and I always love just the kind things he did for me. And so so that was one really good thing that came out of the whole Sledgehammer Spike training debacle is that, and then through that it was actually really good because. Jerry had worked for Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling before and had some connections there. He knew Emil, and had a good relationship with Emil, and so he took me up to Emil's place and kind of introduced me to him and kind of put me on Emil's radar a little bit.
That's awesome. Did you work? Grand Prix wasn't really running all that often at that point. I think they stopped for a while. Their last tour was 2001, and I think they started back up in 2006, maybe something like 5. That's right. Gary and Jeff and Marco were all on that tour.
Yeah.
So CWF went out of business in the end of 2001, the beginning of 2002, I believe, was February 2002, I believe, were their last shows.
Yeah.
What did you do when they went out of business?
Yeah. So Jerry started the MWF, Maritime Wrestling Federation.
Yeah.
And that was all right. As far as looking back, I don't know anyone other than I know Jerry had been trained by Big Steven, but I'm really not sure how many trained guys were actually there. You know what I mean? I'm not here to poo-poo on things, or anything like that. But yeah, so it's funny, But again, for me at the time, I was loving it. That was this was.
You didn't really know any better.
No,
fair, right?
I absolutely didn't know any better. And and so that's I tried to keep busy there. Now they didn't let me have any more matches until I was. I'm trying to think. I think it was until I was like 16 they wanted me to wait till. And but in between time, I got to be referee, and so like refereeing is always good experience out there too. So I refereed up during those few years as well.
When CWF closed, Tony Armstrong, Scott Phoenix, his name was Sean something, and Paco all went to mainstream wrestling to work for Devin Chittick and to get retrained by Devin Chittick. Was that not an option for you, or did you know that was going on? Do you remember any of that?
I didn't really know that was going on too much. I mean,
that would have been the spring of 2002.
Yeah, spring. Yeah, so I would have been in grade 8.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was just very much out of the loop on that. Yeah.
Did you know of mainstream wrestling?
Yep, I knew of mainstream wrestling.
Did you ever go to any of their shows back then?
Good question. I don't think, because I don't remember going to any of the shows.
They did run Muscadobit in October 2000. They've run it a few times, but I think the last time they ran it at that point in time was like October 2002. There was a casket match between Devin and a guy named Damien Dredd.
Okay.
He runs MSW New Brunswick now.
Okay.
I don't know if you know anything.
No, again, I've heard of MSW New Brunswick, but
he's the guy that runs that. His real name's Steve Lorock, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, you didn't go to the shows.
No. I mean, I think I could be getting this wrong because it was so long ago. Like, I think there were some shows that Rebel and Devin were on together, and I know there was some kind of a falling out, and then
Devin worked with Spike and Rebel at one point, and Chuck. He's worked for Chuck a bunch of times over.
Yeah, they've always.
But at that point, Spike was on some of Devin's early shows as well. Yeah, no, Devin was Chuck worked or Spike worked for Devin a lot back then, and Rebel did some shows as well. So when did you ever realize that maybe this wasn't the right way to go about wrestling, that there was a proper way to get trained? Like, when did you figure that out?
Well, I think the first big wake-up call for me was when I got around more experienced guys. It was when I got around the Grand Prix roster in 2005, and you got Gary, and you got Duke, and who else? Buddy Lane was there. Cuban Assassin too. All kinds of really well experienced people, right? And so it was I got to work a few matches and things that summer, mainly refereed that in 2005, but I got to work a few matches, and I mean it's you learn quickly that you gotta pick it up. You gotta learn.
I filmed a few shows that summer, but you weren't on those particular ones for some reason. We must have just missed each other. There was a Bridgewater one and a Kentville one. They were back to back.
Yeah, mine I think it was, I know it was like the day, it's either right before my prom or like the day after my prom or something like that. I think it was right after my prom.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would have been like June 20 something in 2005 that I went on. I think it was a week or two that I think it was 2 weeks that they ran.
I think that was just after the shows I did.
Yeah. And then, because it's funny, like, right, we miss each other in so many things
all the time. It's funny.
Yeah, but I mean that was kind of the first kind of big wake up call, and what could you do? You only know what you know, and you just gotta take the opportunities you're given to try to take the advice, right?
Were you still doing the quote unquote backyard thing right up until that point, or had you stopped?
Would have been pretty close, I think. It would have been close for sure. I mean, there definitely wasn't any effort from Rebel to kind of keep me with him. Like, he was the one driving me up to New Brunswick, be like, here, meet him, talk to him, do this, do that, try to promote yourself. Like, he was trying to help me move forward. So I definitely didn't do that afterwards. One, there wasn't really the shows, and then two, it was just, my main focus was, 2005 was doing my best while I was there, and then in the meantime, trying to get any ring time I could. Now that probably was in Rebel's yard in his ring, right? Trying to do whatever I could. Yeah. So
you did. How did Emil come about putting you on those Grand Prix shows as a ref? Like, how did that come about?
So Rebel drove me up, and then Emil was running a school at that time. I believe Jeff was down as the head trainer or something like that. And
was that the school, the class all the IHW guys were doing?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
You just missed out on that, man.
I found out afterwards, like, you know, I found out in like 2014, like, oh, it's the Rhino kid. We used to say he used to look like Rhino when he came in your stocking. And I'm like, oh, okay, weird.
That's funny.
Yeah, so they remembered me. And but yeah, no, I got to do some stuff up there, and I remember refereeing a couple matches, just, you know, training matches. And if you've never been to Emil's house, he had his garage attached to his living room. Just there's like a little screen door there. And I could see Emil kind of sitting on his couch and watching through the screen door, and like he was my hard cam, right? I didn't know what the term hard cam meant at that time, but everything I did was selling towards Emil, and big and loud, and, you know, and I could see him looking at me, so I knew he was thinking, right? So yeah, that was how Emil, you know, said, yeah, well, I think I might offer too, you know, like I'd love to get on as referee, and, you know, you seen what I could do, and he said sure. So.
It's funny when you go back and think about it. Like Titus was probably there, Julian, and Marcus Burke. They all trained at like the same time.
I'm not sure if Burke was there or not. I know Chris Hicks talked to me one day. He told me about he remembered me visiting up there. Like I didn't remember him, but he remembered,
so when you went on the road with Grand Prix, you started to realize possibly the way you were training was not necessarily the right way. What was the experience for you being around guys like Gary and Jeff Dupree and Marco Estrada and Duke McIsaac and all those guys? I think Ryan Storm.
I don't know if Marco was on that leg of the tour I was on, actually.
Okay.
Just to kind of, I don't want to pretend like, oh yeah, Marco was there. You know,
he was on the part I did.
Exactly.
That's why I remember it. Okay.
No, for sure. Yeah. No, it was. I think that it was just a bit of culture shock. You know what I mean? Like I always chuckle to myself. It was one of the first days on tour, and I said to Duke, I'm like, Duke, you know, is there Tim Hortons around here? We could stop and grab a snack. And Duke just is like, guys, he wants to go to Tim's. And I'm like, what's the big deal? He's like, come here. And we went to his Sobeys, and he's like, look, these are some kippers, and this is peanut butter, and this is a loaf of bread. Like, buy these things, save your money on the road. You know. So that was that was interesting.
Did you have any experiences? I think Eddie Watts was booking. Did you have any
Eddie
experience with Watts?
Yeah, Eddie Watts was there. Very intimidating fella. Very intimidating fella. Had a presence about him, and you know, I always I watched as many tapes on him that I could from, you know, years ago before the tour even started. So I knew who he was. A little bit starstruck just because, you know, I knew he had wrestled in Mexico and Japan.
Did like 23 barbed wire matches in Puerto Rico in a row. Yeah.
You know, maybe, you know, I was going to say, you know, I don't know if that's true or not, but hey, if it is,
it's a legend, it's true.
That's right, it's on the internet, right? But yeah, so Eddie was definitely there. Eddie treated me good, you know. I remember a few different memories of Eddie Watts. So standing in the line with him in Subway, and he's like, "You're a kid," and he gives me some kind of stickers, and if you get so many stickers, you get a free sub. And there you go. Well, thanks, Eddie. You know, or like refereeing one of his matches, and I'm trying to again be big and loud because I thought that's what I was supposed to be, which to a point a referee is. However, there's times to do that. So I was being loud. They were trying to communicate with one another, and he's like, "Shut up, referee, you dummy!" I don't know if I said another word the whole match.
That's funny.
And then I don't know if he did this with everybody or not, but he did when you see the Beetle drive by, you do the punch buggy. Oh man, he just be sitting there and go wham! It's like, oh, it hurts so bad. Yeah, he didn't hold back on that. And then one time we were at a hotel, I don't know, some little town, and I looked in like the back parking lot, and I seen a Beetle. I'm like, oh good, I'm gonna get Eddie. And I'm like, punch buggy, just like tap him. He goes, oh, you don't do that. Whack, hits me in the face. I'm like, I felt pretty bad at that moment, actually. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, he didn't, like, you know, damage me, but
right.
I felt
he just let you know he was
I felt
there.
it. Yeah.
So that tour ended. What did you do? Did you get to train at all, like as a wrestler at Emil's house?
I mean, whenever we made the trip up, I probably made, I don't know, 4 or 5 trips up to his house all together and get some training in when I could. You know, the whole point being, you know, I looked at that as my Grand Prix tryout, right? You know, I was going to try to get on tour there, so. But not a whole heck of a lot of training, you know, like even at the shows are run, excuse me, pretty tight. So, you know, you set up the ring and next thing you know, the show's on, the ring's down, and you're at the hotel, and you do it all over again. Like, there wasn't really a whole lot of downtime to do that, or if there was, these are guys that had, as you were saying earlier, right? They were already on tour, for most of them, for a long time, so they're beaten up and tired, and they're not going to want to jump around with me in the ring, So.
The other guy I wanted to ask you about, my namesake, Scott Savage. Did you have any interaction with Scotty?
Lots, yeah.
Any memories of him?
Scott, he, nice guy, really ripped. He was always really ripped. He would wake up in the middle of the night and have his protein shake. He'd always have his protein shake beside his bed and wake up in the middle of the night for that. What else I remember about Scott? We used to be, both of us were very nervous of Ron Gauguin's driving. It was Ron Gauguin driving, me and Scott usually sitting in the back, and then I think Ryan Storm in the front seat.
Yeah.
And there was that. I remember I had one of these big, thick Uncle John's bathroom readers, and this is how I'd kill time on the road. And I'd have this little book light, and I'm with my bathroom reader, and it's dark, and we're driving, and Ron, turn that light up, okay.
That's funny. So later that fall, Cinder used to ref for Real Action Wrestling, and also he used to ref and wrestle. He was the wrestling ref. Was running a new Real Action Wrestling show on Goddigan Street at the Micmac Friendship Center. Okay. That's where you first met Tony.
I didn't even know the brand of that show.
Yeah,
okay. Real Action
How did you? I was working really close with Cinder on that show.
Yeah.
Everything that could possibly go wrong for a show went wrong with that show.
Yeah.
It didn't end up doing all that well. How did you get on that show? Because I didn't even know you were on it until we met 10 years later.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure, if memory serves me, I called Gary, and the summer tour had ended not that long beforehand, and basically said, I'm looking to get any experience I can, is there any way I can get on this show? And I refereed that show. So, a match anyway.
Yeah, you did Scott and Vinny, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember that the ring was broken? It had no ropes. There was 3 posts. Spades was the 4th ring post, just holding it in place for the entire show.
I do remember that.
Which Sarah Dunsworth was there. John Dunsworth was in the crowd. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, John Dunsworth was in the crowd at that show.
Yeah.
Mr. Leahy from Trailer Park Boys, if you don't know, Sarah's dad. What were your thoughts on that whole situation, knowing that there was no ropes and there was a human being as the 4th post and a coffee table?
I just felt really awkward. I mean, not necessarily even because of all that stuff, but again, kind of what we were talking about earlier with that whole, I wanted to be part of the maritime scene, but I was with the kind of the crowd that was looked down on for a long time. Got a little bit of a break in Grand Prix Wrestling, which I was really thankful for, and then kind of jumping out of that to this show in Halifax where I don't really know anybody. I mean, Gary was on the show, but I mean, Gary was busy and whatever, you know what I mean? And so, I just felt, I don't know, I just felt like I didn't belong. And in a lot of ways, I probably didn't. But yeah, I mean, that for a lot of years was the big thing in my mind as far as, belonging as part of the boys, being respected, even a small part, but as long as I'm respected as part of the scene, belonging there. But yeah, at that time I was just like, I don't deserve to be here right now.
We got sued over that show.
Did you?
Cinder owned the name Real Action Wrestling. They sued him over the name because he legally bought it after they went out of business, and they sued me over the rights to the video footage, which I legally own. So it went absolutely nowhere. So we had to get lawyers and all that jazz.
Wow.
Because of it. It's funny because I talk to one of the guys now, not too often, but every now and again, and we're friendly. But it was just they were just in a bad place. Like they just lost their company and they were mad because Cinder bought the name from them, and I owned their video footage. But it was funny. We got sued over that show that drew 20 people, right?
Yep.
It was crazy.
Yep. Straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. So you met Tony Armstrong for the first time that night. What are your memories of meeting Tony?
My memories from meeting Tony that night. Looking back, I probably screwed up. Because again, I'm thinking, crap, I don't really deserve to be here right now, but I got to prove myself to these guys.
Yeah.
And Tony's like, hey, go buy me a Coke. Hey, go buy him a Coke. And I'm just like, no. It's like if I go buy him a Coke, he's not going to respect me. He wants me to stand my ground. Anyway, so
you probably just wanted a Coke.
Yeah, probably. Right? And so that probably wasn't helping my cause at all.
That's funny.
And what else? The other thing, I don't think he was talking to me, but he was just like, he's talking to somebody, and I'm pretty sure looking back was just like an inside joke. Yeah. But he goes, hey, so-and-so, did you watch Raw last night? And they go, oh yeah, of course you did, effing Mark, right? And then
that was Tony, like you know Tony now, like.
Yeah, but in my head I was thinking, I watched Raw last night. Are we not supposed to watch wrestling? Oh no.
Tony was an angry fella back in those days. Did you have any interaction with Rick, Trash Canyon? He was on that show as well?
Not that I recall. I mean, I've probably seen him, and but didn't really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you knew Gary at this point, right?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So you talked to him about getting on that show.
Yeah.
A month later, Gary started his first wrestling school in October of 2005. Why didn't you join up?
I'm pretty sure I didn't know. Well, actually, that might be a lie. Because I'm thinking, like, I
that was the night Troy met Gary for the first time too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I definitely, like, your website would have been going and advertising in school at that time, right? Yeah. So no, I would have.
Did you know what my website is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was Dice that showed me your website for the first time.
Nice.
Yeah. He showed me your website and showed me the forums where people fought for no reason.
That was horrible.
Oh,
it's no different now.
Yeah. And so I guess I knew. I mean, again, this would have been grade 11. I mean, I'm not sure, man. Like, what year? That was 2005?
That was October 2005. And there was a 15-year-old in the first class.
Yeah.
Chris Madison.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Yeah, tell you the truth on that. At that time, my sight was set on, get on the 2006 summer tour. Like I assumed there was going to be one for Grand Prix, and that was kind of my sights. I was thinking.
Don't you think being correctly trained may have helped your purpose?
Totally, but the next thought was my next thing I wanted to do was I either wanted to go to Afa and Sika's wrestling school, so that's probably the reason.
When it was in Philly, or when it was in Allentown?
Allentown, I believe.
I've been there. That's why.
And then there was a few on my radar. There was Hart Brothers Wrestling School, long gone now. As far as Bruce Hart called my house and was like, I'm calling because I'd made contact and Bruce called and left a message, and again, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Bruce Hart called my house. So that message was kept for a while, but it didn't last that long.
That's awesome.
So there's that school, Athens, Seek of the Wild Samoans, and then Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Yeah.
Those were the ones, because again, I was just thinking I got to make it to the Fed. I got to try to hit the big time. So that's probably why, actually, now that I think back, is because I'm like, well, okay, why would I pay for this training when I know I'm gonna get on this summer tour? I'll be graduated high school. I'll go to university, wherever, and like close to one of these wrestling schools if I'm going, and take it from there.
It's funny you mentioned office school. I've been to office school. Like Batista was there and I was there.
Yep.
Jamal, who was later Umaga, was there and I was there. Slick Wagner Brown, April Hunter. It's crazy. The talent that was there was unreal.
Yep.
But Tommy Osborne, who came out of Gary's first class, also was going to do something similar to you. He was going to go down to Killer Kowalski's school, which he actually may have gone down, but he didn't end up training there. He came home and then found out Gary was having a school here, so he signed up to that one instead. But you never did any of Gary's classes at that point. Even like when did you start training with? We're going to come back to the Grand Prix stuff, but when did you actually get trained by Gary?
Yeah, so that would have been, when was it? I think it was 2014.
Okay, so a long time. Okay, we got a ways to go. Okay.
Yep.
So the summer 2006 rolls around. You get booked on the Grand Prix tour.
Yep. Get booked on the Grand. They had me in as.
Were you wrestling?
Yes.
Okay.
They had me in as Jamie Cash. They put me in as James Parker, which apparently they were there's supposed to be like a rib on Frank Parker or something, I guess. Yeah, they put me in as Jamie Cash, James Parker, and then the Super B. So they put like a black singlet on me and the the B stripe mask and the B stripe tights to go over, and yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Two of Gary's students were on that tour full time. Two of my best friends in the world to this day, Crystal and Scott and Tommy Osborne.
Yeah.
Do you remember them?
Yeah.
What are your memories of that?
I don't remember a lot of Tommy. I remember being impressed, like he was really good.
Stupid talented for having no experience.
Yeah. And I remember the first time I met Krista, I remember how respectful she was. I mean, I was nobody. I was struggling in my own mind, like, do I belong here? All these types of things, and shook hands, and she's like, oh my goodness, just respect. She wasn't like, she didn't know who I was per se, but I thought that was very kind of her. Yeah.
Did you ever have any matches with Jeff? Or I know Kristen did a lot of mixed tags and worked Shanae a lot, but it was usually Shanae and Jeff or Tommy Osborne against Spider-Man and Krista were the tag matches. Did you do anything? Did you get to do anything with them?
No, I did. Worked Human Assassin 2, and I worked Jerry Rebel. Worked him a few times. Worked some six-mans. So there was like. Trying to think of who it was. It would be me. It was the heels were Chad Dick, Cuban Assassin 2, and Rebel, and then it was myself, Jeff Dupree, and trying to think of who the other babyface was. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but yeah. So that between those matches, and
they generally ran the same card every night.
That's what I was just going to say, right? So
it's crazy when I was coming to like 5 or 6 shows in a row filming the same thing. Yeah. So I'm going to go back a little bit. The summer of 2005, there was another tour, a PWU tour that Gary was on. That was the one where like Pete's ring got left on the side of the road. I don't know if you've ever heard of those stories or not.
Maybe if you posted about it a long time ago.
I did. You weren't up there, but do you remember hearing about those and trying to get on it at all? Like Lance Storm was supposed to be here and Matt Hardy. Neither one of them came. But
I remember, and Storm wrote about it, right?
Yeah. He was super pissed.
I remember reading about that. Yeah. I don't think I tried to get on those shows, or maybe I tried and failed miserably. Right. I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
And IHW started up later that fall as well.
Yeah.
Did you ever try to get booked with them early on? Because you knew at that time you would have known some of them from training at Emil's. You may not remember now, but you would have then.
I think I was influenced too. Like, my first kind of break in wrestling was 2005 at Grand Prix, and then they. For so many years, Grand Prix was kind of the be-all, end-all of maritime wrestling.
No doubt.
And, whether they realize it or not, like, in their mind, even to this day, that is the biggest going promotion. So if they were to have a Grand Prix wrestling show tomorrow, they still see themselves as this giant in the Maritimes, which I'm not discrediting the history at all, but the production and all those things of the shows, there's a lot of other shows that have a lot more. But
I have a funny story about that after you're done. I'll tell you.
But anyway, I think, like every morning, like, I mean, they treated me and the other wrestlers fantastic, like they put us up in their house, they treat us like their own family, they feed us, like all these awesome things. I don't have any complaints. Awesome people. Emil and Paul are fantastic. Yep. But in Emil's mind, every other promotion was, to quote him, was a rinky-dink promotion. They weren't really measuring up. They try to wrestle, but they're not really wrestling. Yeah. All these types of things, and so that's kind of the mindset that I started to develop. Because again, this was, I didn't really know better, and then I got in there, and then I'm being told by someone who I really respected that all these other guys.
If Emil Dupree is telling you these things, you're 100% going to believe them, right?
Exactly, and so I think maybe. I didn't even realize that at the time, but now that I look back, that's probably why I didn't reach out to so many of these other shows, because no, I'm just going to focus. I need to get on Grand Prix and focus on that. Right, that was kind of my thing.
Yeah, Okay, I don't think I've ever told this story on. Lots of people know this story, but I don't think I ever told it on camera before.
Okay, yeah.
You might have actually heard it too. It's about what you're talking about how Emil thinks everything else is crap. Me, Tony Armstrong, Krista, and Tommy Osborne all went to Emil's house because this was when Krista was trying to get booked on the Grand Prix Tour for the first time.
Yep.
Like she had only had 2 matches before she was booked full-time on Grand Prix, and we went down to Maine for those two, so she had never actually wrestled around here before. So we were at Emil's house, and he knew we were coming up for the IHW show, and he, like, all those guys started their own thing, so he was, even though he trained them, he hated them all, right? He was like, oh, the backyarders, blah, blah, blah. Dude, you don't want to work for too many of those promotions. And he's like, and then I'm sitting on his sofa. He's like, and then you have this New Scott guy who's running the show at the Halifax Forum Multipurpose Center, the
Maritime Cup.
The Maritime Cup.
Yeah.
And he's like, that guy's absolutely no idea what he's doing. And I'm not making this up, quote unquote. Him and Vince McMahon are me, and Vince McMahon are the reasons why the wrestling business is in the shape that it's in. I'm trying not to pop on this guy's sofa because I'm like, he just compared me to Vince. No idea he's actually talking to me because I introduced myself as Harold, right?
Yes.
And
yeah, if you would have said I'm New Scott, you would have been kicked out.
I wouldn't have been allowed in the front door.
No.
And me and Jeff are just like dying on the inside. I'm like, Jeff, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, right? So he's just tearing me apart to me, about me, not know he's talking to me, right? And I'm not going to correct the dude, right? I have no ill feelings towards the man, like 100% respect that dude as much as anybody else for what he's done for Maritime Wrestling, right? But it was absolutely hilarious.
That's funny.
Then I drew 1,100 people at the Forum for the 3rd Maritime Cup. 1126 is the exact number.
Yep.
He was like, F this guy.
I'm going in there.
I'm going in there.
Yeah.
2 weeks later.
Yeah.
God love Krista. She was working for Emil at the time.
What was the date of that show?
My show was June 2nd.
Yeah.
His was like the 7th.
2006?
Yeah.
So I might have been on that show when he went back in.
I was in the crowd. And God love Krista. Tried to explain to him that it's just not going to happen. She explained to him how much work he did, and he was determined. They might have drew 30 people that night, and me and Sarah Dunsworth, who I promoted the cup with, sat in the back row of that show, and he stood behind us the entire time as we watched that show to see if we were going to say something negative about it. But most of my friends were wrestling on that show. I'm not going to say anything
you're there to
about it,
support.
Right? Yeah. But man, he was angry, and I felt bad, but I'm like, I wasn't trying to disrespect anything.
He's probably thinking you sabotaged things somehow.
I ruined it for him, right? Yeah. That's what you're talking about, how everything else was backyard to him, right?
Yeah,
it was crazy. But did you hear about my show at all at that point in time?
Well, I was at the Maritime Cup for one.
The one? Okay, you were at the first one in 2003?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go back. I didn't realize that. Okay, I was only talking about stuff you did. How did you hear about that show? That's my show as well.
Yeah, it would have either been through. I think it might have been radio. Did you do radio?
I did.
Yeah, it was probably radio.
Yeah.
And then my dad took me out to the show, and I had watched Bobby Roode on Velocity like the night before.
The night before, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, we're going to see this guy tomorrow live. I was so stoked.
Where were you sitting? Do you remember? I'm going to have to go back and watch the tape.
We've had this conversation. I don't know if you've ever been able to find me. Might be better now that I know the layout of the Forum more. I remember, like, you'll have to go back and look, because I don't remember the orientation as far as where I'm at, as far as where the doors are and things. But Mike Hughes got like nose to nose with a fan that night. Yeah. And then, and I'm pretty sure, like, if I'm sitting down, then it would have been to my left. Okay. I'm pretty sure, because I remember asking my dad, "Hey, Dad, do you think that guy could have taken Mike Hughes?" He's like, "No, son, I think that's what would have won."
Yeah, I had no idea. I don't remember you ever telling me that you were at that show. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Loved it.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah. So, were you at the 3rd Cup too? That was my big one.
I don't think so.
No. Bobby was on that one too.
I think it was just the first one that I made it to.
Okay.
Yeah, you spoiled it.
I'm
not coming back to this again.
It sucks. No. So 2006 rolls around. What are your memories of touring that? Did you do the full tour?
No, I did.
Grand Prix?
As much as like they had me on for. I did. I believe I think it was 2 weeks. 2 weeks shot. Yeah.
What are some memories of that?
lots of memories on that.
Who was all here for that, other than the people you mentioned earlier? Who, I can't remember, I know Jeff Dupree was doing it, Gary was on it, the Dicks.
One of them. Chad Dick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who else? So the Cuban Assassin 2 was back.
Right, that's his son, right?
Yes.
The original one's son.
That's right. And I can't remember if Frenchie Lamar was on both tours or just the one tour. No, Frenchie Lamar was down in 2005. You know, he was down in 2006 too, because Chad Dick in the dressing room, he laid on his back, and then Frenchie Lamar did a handstand on his hands, and he would like bench press Frenchie Lamar while he was doing a handstand on him. It was incredible.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was those guys. Farmer Pete, I don't know if he ever wrestled anywhere else. I mean, it's probably
little fella, right?
Midget wrestler.
Yeah.
He wrestled French Le Mans on that tour. Gary was on. Duke wasn't on that summer. I think he might have came on near the end as a spoiler or something like that, under a mask.
Yeah.
But I wasn't there for that.
He did that in 05 too for a few
Did he in 05? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was 06.
It had
That
to
was
be
06.
yeah, because he was.
That's right. I have him on tape wrestling Jeff Dupree as a spoiler.
Gotcha.
In 06. Right,
Yeah.
Bridgewater.
Yeah.
Yeah. It all blends together after a while.
It does. Yeah, there's little specific details.
Yeah.
Like, oh wait, it had to be this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 2006 wrestling season closes down. What do you do now?
Good question. So during that time, all right. Yeah. So the summer 2006, as it's winding down, you got to think back. I just graduated high school, kind of just entering this new chapter of my life, and I had been in wrestling for a number of years at that point. Like not that I was getting a lot of matches, but definitely a lot of, bumps. I'll say bumps.
Some people.
I was around, and definitely a lot of bumps. Even if it wasn't great training, I was, still up in a ring a few times a week for a few hours each time, pretty much every week, and things like that. And anyway, during that tour in 2006, I remember kind of looking around, and then I remember specifically Gary, funny enough, he came in after one of his matches, and he's just like, oh, my back, and he lays down on the bench, and he's just didn't move for 15 minutes probably, just trying to get his body to kind of straighten out a little bit so we could, function.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, it's crazy, he's not an old guy. He was only in his probably 30s at that time, I guess. Yeah, early 30s.
I think he turned 32 in that July. His birthday was the same day as the Cup. That's why I remember.
There you go, yeah. Right? So,
something like that.
And I was just thinking to myself, is this the life I have to look forward to, if I want to really do this? And then Cuban Assassin 2, Richie, talking to him, and I watch him again. At that time, he was probably a little older than Gary, of course, but I mean, he was still in his 30s somewhere, I think. And I'd watch him go up a set of stairs, and he'd put his left foot up, and then rest it, and then he'd bring his right foot up, and then he'd put his left foot up. He wouldn't step, right? He'd step, and it was because of his knees and things like that. And I was just I'd ask him about it, and he said, "Man, this is what's waiting for you. This is what's waiting for you." And I was like, "Frick." And I didn't really know how to process it all, because this had been my drive for so long. But then I also, I really value
walking.
Well, yeah, I really value walking, and I want to be able to be fully active for as much of my life as I can, and things like that. And I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna have to cold turkey this thing. And for 2 years, I didn't have any matches at all. Didn't train, didn't really pursue wrestling. Then in 2008, Jerry and I went to a Grand Prix show just to say hi to some guys, and they threw me in the Battle Royal, and I didn't even really want to work it when I first got there, but then the itch starts to go, and you're like, oh, this will be fun, so I got in, did that, and then I didn't wrestle again until 2014.
So from 2008 to 2014?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you, Wrestling Reality happened in 2007. Did you know about that? Did you watch it? Did you?
I didn't get to watch much of it at the time, but I knew about it and read as much as I could. I remember reading Lance Storm's negative review. I used to go to Storm Wrestling all the time and like always try to read his vlog updates and things like that. And yeah.
Do you remember what that was about? If you don't, I do.
Was it Pete in the
Maybe,
steroids or
no? That might have been part of it. But the thing that set him off was the commentator, it was the commentator's first time ever commentating, so he's bound to make a mistake or two, right? And called Tommy Osborne, Jeff, a veteran wrestler.
Oh,
and he wrote a huge column about it, just like trashing it. But it was just a mistake and a slip up, and the Fight Work didn't know any better to fix it either, right? It wasn't a big deal. It's not like it was so, he blew it so out of proportion. He's been here at least once since.
Yeah,
once since. I wasn't here. I want to talk to him about that so bad, to like explain it. Like,
yeah, you don't understand.
Because like he tore it apart. What are your memories of reading that?
I'd have to look it up.
I love Storm.
I just remember being disappointed. You know, I was really excited. And I was hoping it would kind of get his endorsement, you know, but it didn't, so I was disappointed in that.
It broke my heart. I love the dude. My cat was named Storm after him.
Yeah.
And then when he wrote that, I'm like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't get it. Like, it's a big misunderstanding. I want to talk to him about it so bad, but he probably doesn't even remember.
And I just remember I made a mistake. I had that match in 2008, and it wasn't 2014. It was 2012.
Okay.
I started coming
so
back.
What were you doing in your life from 2008 to 2012?
Yeah, so university, you know, went to St. Mary's University, took a commerce degree, installed swimming pools in the summertime.
Nice.
Then...
Did you go to any shows? Were you attending shows at all?
No. I got really heavily into the UFC at that time, and like, you know, try to watch as much of that. I remember sometimes I think, I don't like that wrestling anymore. I like UFC now.
That's funny.
Yeah, and I mean, I was lying to myself, but
that was 2012. You said that too? Yeah. Where your match was back? Yeah.
Yeah, I had a match 2012, But yeah, so boom, university. When I graduated university, doing pools again that summer because I had been the other summers. Had an opportunity to move out west. Went to Fort Mac for a little bit.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
I moved out there. You know, well, did the shifts, right? You know, like whether it's 10 on, 4 off.
What were you doing out there?
Survey assistant on one of the oil sites.
Okay.
Yeah, the Suncor oil site, oil sands, and So did that, which was a great opportunity, you know, able to pay off some of those St. Mary's student loans. Yeah. And then I moved back. Shortly after moving back, would have been in the fall of 2012.
Okay.
So it was either late 2012 or early 2013 that I wrestled, because it was when I was working. I got a job for Penske Truck Leasing. I was the rental guy there, and I was fine, just, you know, doing all the things as a rental rep does. And just so happened, this guy hitting his own camera. Just so happened that Chuck Martin, the promoter of UCW, got his rental trucks for his shows at Penske, and so Chuck and I, you know, we have a long-standing relationship. You know, Chuck's known me since I was 12 years old at Sledgehammer Spike's wrestling school. You know what I mean? And yeah.
Did he recognize you when he went in?
Oh yeah, Chuck. Yeah, because I mean, Chuck did all the stuff with MWF and things as well, right? That's true. Yeah, and so, you know, we knew each other quite well.
Coal miner Chuck.
He was Coal miner Chuck when I first seen him, and then then he switched into was there something else before the Menace? Or was it just right into the Menace?
I mean, I think it was just into the. I think it was just into that. I think it was just into the Menace.
Okay.
I think he also wrestled as the Herring Choker too.
Maybe.
I think.
It's 2 gimmicks we've shared now.
Yeah. I'm pretty. I can't say that for 100%, but I'm pretty sure that he did.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you met Chuck.
Yeah, so yeah, you know, and he's like, James, you know, you work here, blah blah blah. You'll have to get me a good deal, whatever. Of course, you know, you're gonna try to get a good deal and all that good stuff. Yes. But anyway, I don't know. It was a couple months after I started working there. He calls me up and said, "Yeah, I want you to come out of retirement. I want you to be my tag partner." And I just said, "Okay."
Twist my arm.
Yeah. I think just the whole thought of someone saying, "Yeah, I want you to be part of the show." I was like, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." So yeah, that was cool. So I was the Maritime Menace #2, and it was me and Chuck went against Nick Diggs and Greaser.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
He didn't tell this story, or I don't think he did. What are your memories of that match?
What are my memories of that match? Just nothing specific.
At this point,
you know,
Greaser and Nick weren't really trained either.
Not really. You know, like they hadn't gone through Gary's class either at that time. I mean, you know, they still had talent. You know, like they still had a lot of stuff kind of coming out of them, and yeah. I mean, I don't remember anything too specific. Just kind of working around in there. Yeah.
You mentioned you came back in 2012, and you mentioned.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it might have been early 2013 because I know I started with Penske in 2012, and then it was through Penske that I got on with Chuck. So it might have been early 2013.
Somewhere right around there. You mentioned earlier that you were really into mixed martial arts, and you even like didn't want to watch wrestling anymore because you were big into MMA. That's when the tryouts for Cubicle to the Cage happened. Mixed martial arts.
I remember reading about you doing those.
Reality show. Why didn't you do it? I mean, we've rolled. If you definitely could have done it. Why didn't you do it? I mean, if I was there, you could have definitely been there.
I don't know, man. Yeah.
Did you know it was happening ahead of time?
I definitely didn't know it like way ahead of time. I don't think.
I mean about the tryouts.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I don't remember ever thinking like this should be something I should do.
Okay.
Like you know, just never really had that. Maybe I should have though. I don't know.
You 100% should have. Like I said, we've rolled. You would have crushed it there. You would have been. You're gorilla strong. Like you would have done really really well. And there was only one other guy. If you were the same size then, that would have been your size, like in shape that size. Yeah. And I always get stuck with him because he was 40. He was about 220. He was like 19 years old, 220, just chiseled. Yeah. And I was like 185, 190 pounds. Yeah. But the next biggest guy to me was like 40 pounds less than me. So I always get stuck with him because I was fairly strong for my size. So I could throw those little guys around. Yeah. And he could really throw those little guys around. Yeah. So me and him always got paired together, even though he was 40 pounds heavier than I was. Yeah. But so that even though you liked it, it wasn't something that you enjoyed, like you wanted to pursue. I mean,
I didn't really know why. I mean, I did some jiu-jitsu classes, nothing crazy. You
did some training at Titans.
Yeah, I did training. Yeah. I trained at a few different spots. I did some training at Titans off and on. That was during university.
Yeah. Did you ever train with like Roger or Clinton when they were there?
Yeah, I remember rolling with Clinton. Yeah. I remember being really nervous because I
went to school with those guys.
Nice. Yeah, I was on bottom. He started the roll or the drill or whatever in side mount. And I remember just like flailing, like, calm down. Yeah. But Ryan Jimmo was the Titans at that time.
Yeah, he was a kickboxing teacher, or he was for
was he?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. There's your Peter and your Kevin, Peter Martell, Kevin Taylor.
Yeah, he was our head trainer.
I don't know how to pronounce her name. I think it's like Tanya.
Tanya Hademan?
Yes. Yeah, she was there. She's a beast.
Yeah. She's does mostly CrossFit now.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, very cool. But yeah, no, those are good times. So yeah, a little bit of jiu-jitsu there. Kind of a stop-start relationship with jiu-jitsu. Did it for a bit there. Did it for a bit at Palooka's, and that opened up. Did it at Bushido Kai. Grappling.
I wanted to go there, but I never did. How was that place?
I really liked it. Yeah. Pretty low key.
Did you ever go to TJ's?
Fit Plus. I've been there for a Hoist Gracie seminar, but I didn't get to do too much. I was, it was across the bridge and more money is pretty expensive.
Did you get the meat hoist?
Yeah, I did 2 seminars.
How was that?
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think.
Because he's the dude, right?
He's the dude, right?
He's the guy.
That was. You might know. Do you know Ryan Saunders? He used to run the Fight Store. He's the guy who set up that seminar. The first one.
Name sounds familiar, but I don't think I know him.
But yeah, no. I mean, Hoist was good. I don't know. I didn't know enough jiu-jitsu then, or probably now, to know like how detailed or quality the teaching was. But I remember he showed like guillotine defenses. I remember he told me to put a guy in a headlock, and I put him in a pro wrestling headlock, and Hoist got really mad at me.
That's hilarious. Did you know what you were doing?
Well, he didn't know it was I don't know if he knew it was pro wrestling, but that's not how you do a headlock. And I'm like, I don't know. That's how I've been shown to do a headlock.
That's hilarious. Did you do Jeremy Horns when he was here?
No, I didn't know he was here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But, it was good. And, I remember the second Hoist Gracie seminar, thinking how jacked he was compared to the first one. And then shortly after, he got caught for steroids, which is nice. But I'm like, I don't know, Hoist, you're pretty... His bicep beams are...
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it was probably around the same time he was getting ready to fight Shamrock, maybe?
Yeah, that's one thing. Hoist doesn't like Shamrock. He called him an a-hole.
No, we talked about it when he was here?
Yeah, someone asked about Shamrock. He said, yeah, he's an a-hole. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So, when did you first hear about Wrestle Center, and how were you approached about it?
Yeah. So, the first time I would have met Jason Mosier, I believe Tyler Burns was there too, was backstage at a UCW show. So, that match where I go in as a menace, that happens.
They were probably filming?
What's that?
Jason and Tyler were probably filming?
Yeah, I don't know if they were at those shows,
okay.
But I should tell this story too before I get into that. But, the match with the menace, all that happens, boom, boom, boom. Okay, that's enough of the being Maritime Menace number 2. I'll be something else. And so the show's getting close to starting. A random show, I don't know where it was. And he said, I said, Chuck, what's my name tonight? And he goes, you're gonna be James Starr. And then I said, Chuck, there's already someone on the card tonight called James Carr. He's like, oh, you'll be Tommy Starr. And Tommy Starr was born.
Yeah, he gave Greaser his name too, but didn't. James doesn't know where it came from. Do you know where yours came from, or did he just out of the blue Tommy Starr?
First like James Starr, and then because we had a James Carr, he said, "Well, you're going to be Tommy Starr."
That's
funny.
So
he is stuck on the star, I guess.
Yeah. Right?
Very
important.
Yeah, and so boom, boom, boom. So at this time, I'm wrestling as Tommy Starr for UCW, and then. I think it was after one of the shows, or maybe before one of the shows, Chuck kind of got the locker room together and said, this is Jason Mosier, this is Tyler, these guys have some, production experience, they're going to be filming the shows, and I don't know if at that time they might have even, I don't know if they were doing anything with the documentary at that time, probably not, I think they were just filming, and, but yeah, that's how I would have met Jason Mosier, and then, however many shows after that, I don't think it was too many, he messaged me and basically said he was doing his, doing one of his own shows. It wasn't hey, stop working for Chuck, work for me. It was just, hey.
That comes later.
Yeah, it was just I have a show. Do you want to be a part of it? And I wanted bookings. I said, yeah, absolutely. So that's how I first kind of got on the Wrestle Center radar.
So the Wrestle Center, when they first started running, did split shows with Chuck.
Yes.
Like one half was UCW and one half was Wrestle Center with like Matt Stryker and at least one of them. Were you around for those shows? Yep. What are your memories of those?
Memories of those.
Were you trained yet?
I hadn't gone through Gary's school at that time.
I didn't think so. Yeah. That's what I'm leading up to it.
So. Yeah, I mean, it was awkward. It got weird really quick. It seemed that way to me anyway. As the whole us and them. We were doing the co-branded show, but it was and maybe other people have a completely different feeling of that whole time. But for me, it felt like
the entire concept seemed strange.
Yeah, it was strange, and and to me, it just seemed like. That they were trying to one-up one another and not really working together
on the same
that
show.
Much. Yeah, that's what it seemed like to me. So yeah.
Okay, so who said this? I can't remember who told me this. One of the interviews I did recently said that they were no.
Okay.
This is how they got in with Gary. Yeah. That they were approached and that they were going to go train somewhere else, and they said, "Well, what if I was able to get Gary?"
Okay.
How were Jason?
I think that was Greaser.
Was it Greaser? Yeah, he said, "Well, what if I'm able to get Gary? Will you stay here and train?" How did your training with Gary come about?
Yeah, so Mosier reached out and said, more or less, basically, I suppose if I scroll way back on Facebook, I could probably find the message. Let's do it. No, more or less, yeah. I get a Gary is running a school. I'd like to be a part of it. It's X amount of money. You know, are you interested, more or less? And yeah, I jumped at the opportunity because, I mean, it wasn't pitched as starting exactly from scratch. It was, you know, for guys that had been in wrestling but need some polishing up and learn how to do things the right way. Right?
Guys that were wrestling that shouldn't have been wrestling yet?
I suppose.
That's my perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
Not for yours. That's how I look at it.
Yeah,
I don't think you should be in there
unless you're properly trained. Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Super dangerous.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
big time.
Oh.
Yeah, and so that was my introduction to that. I will give a shout out, you know, because I mean there was I don't remember what the price tag initially was, but Mosier, you know, he gave me a pretty substantial discount and something I could afford. I'm pretty thankful for that. So
awesome. Was that under the intent that you would come wrestle for him, or you just did it?
I just did it, but I mean,
did he give you the discount with the impression that you were going to come wrestle for him?
Well, I think there was definitely, like, you know,
or was that why he was doing the school anyway?
Well, yeah, like he wanted to have a part in school. I'm not sure all the reasoning, but you know, had this school, and there wasn't like if I take the school, I have to wrestle for him. But it was definitely, you know, I had every intention of wrestling for him. Yeah.
How different was the training with Gary, different from what you had already been doing before?
I would say it was so good to have more bodies around, because before, you know, I won't count Sledge, but before when I was
in his kitchen.
Yeah, when I was
did Gary train you in his kitchen?
No. When I was with Rebel, you know, like we'd be in a ring and things like that, but there's only so much he can critique and point out because he's the other guy working with me. So if I slam him or if I, you know, put him in a headlock, he can know so much by feel, but I mean, he doesn't know if my posture needs to come up or, you know, this, that, or the other. And so having more bodies around to point things out that I had been doing wrong my whole, you know, stint in wrestling, just tons and tons of light bulb moments is what I would say, because it was like, you know, all these things that I had no idea I was doing, right? You know, I was taking every hip toss I could take as crooked as they could possibly be, right? You know, but yeah, you know, so that was a big thing, you know. Gary wasn't showing you know, a bunch of crazy high spots. He was showing the fundamentals and sharpening those, you know, like your timing, your, you know, keeping things crisp, you know, trying to sell properly, you know, like all those different types of things.
Right. Who was in your training class?
My training class, I get these mixed up because there was a lot of different classes of Gary's I've had a heavy part in. So there was me, Greaser, Nick Diggs, those three for sure. Trying to think of who else would have run through that. Matt Bullen. Those are the ones I can think off the top of my head. There's probably other guys. Sorry, guys.
No. Was there something about the training with Gary that you caught on easy to, and on the other side of that, was there something that was more difficult for you to catch on to? Just pause on that.
The physical, like the physicality of wrestling, as far as, you know, a solid tackle, like a good snap on the lockup, laying in a clothesline, you know, things like that. I think that stuff came pretty natural because I've always been a bigger guy, can, you know, pretty barrel chested, can take that stuff pretty good.
It's very strong.
But yeah, the things that didn't come natural is anything with any kind of finesse. Born with 2 left feet, I'm sure of it. So that stuff has always been a struggle. Yeah.
Now there's a thing in the Maritimes, and I don't know why it's a thing. I don't know why it's allowed to be a thing. I asked Sabotage the same question. There's a zillion people in the Maritimes that claim to be trained by Gary. Like 12 of them are actually trained by Gary. Would you consider yourself actually trained by Gary? Was Gary there like the entire time? And I don't mean that in a negative way.
No.
But like Gary back in the day, I wasn't at these classes, so I can't speak for them.
Yeah.
Gary was at every single class for the original like 3 or 4 classes that he ran back in 05, 06, 07.
Yeah.
Back then. Like, what was your experience like?
Gary was there for the majority of the ones
Okay.
I was at. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. But I mean, there's been some other classes that, you know, I've kind of, if I was been like a bump dummy or something for Gary's class where like, you know, a lot of them he's had to miss and other people kind of step in. So I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But for your training, he was there?
He was, I'm just trying to think who would have his co-trainer even been? Like, cause I mean, I really only remember him.
Yeah.
We didn't have a whole ton of classes.
Okay.
It was over a few months.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, I'd have to look back, but I mean, if anything, it would have been mainly on the weekends.
Yeah,
and,
that's all it
you know,
was
and
the first time, too.
Things like that, right?
Back in the day.
This is, you know, we were set up at Titans when they had moved to their current location there
Bears Lake.
on, Bears Lake, Horseshoe Lake Drive there. Yeah, so I mean, I would, consider myself, it wasn't some other person with half the experience
Right.
or less kind of coming in. It was mainly Gary that was there showing the stuff.
Good. So you finish training, and then Russell Center starts running. What was said to you about like getting booked on? Were you booked on the first show?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep. I've been on every Wrestle Center show.
Okay.
Funny enough.
I think I missed every. I was on everyone except the first one and the Cape Breton one. How did that come about? Like,
So
what was pitched?
I remember. I think Gary's school had started already. I think because I remember I was at Titans doing some training. So either Gary's school had already started or was just about to, and I remember the buzz going around that they were going to run a show, and I also was told that AJ Styles was going to be a part of it, and I knew AJ had just kind of, you know, got into his free agency very shortly beforehand. I knew that the whole wrestling world would be kind of watching every move that he made.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty excited at the thought of being on a show with AJ Styles. It wasn't that I'd even necessarily wanted to meet him. It was that I wanted to kind of be where he was at, so other eyeballs would kind of get on me. But yeah, so that's how that first show came about.
What were there any specific? They had a very different way of running things at Wrestle Center. Were there any things that were pitched to you specifically about what the company was going to be, like how it was going to be run, what their idea was for the promotion?
Yeah, as far as I can remember, they were very much, this is a TV product. You know, they weren't in it necessarily for the live event experience. They were use that as almost like a means to an end to produce a good TV product. And so that's the dynamic that they had, and they intended to, you know, not only have the shows, but they wanted to film, you know, storylines and things to make like almost like a wrestling drama, more or less. Yeah.
What ideas did they pitch to you specifically? Was there anything that they had planned out for you? Because you and Greaser were put together pretty early on.
Yeah, we were, yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to think if there's anything specific beforehand that they really pitched. If there was, I don't really remember.
Okay.
I was put with Greaser. The initial thought, me and my buddies were talking one day, and we were thinking, you know, what if there was a wrestler who, you know, was getting beat in the ring, and then his manager was some bigger dude, and then when the guy he was managing, you know, wanted his help, the bigger dude says, "No, I'm not going in until you pay me." So he has, you know, laid out some money on the ring, and then as he's laying out the money, the bigger guy's like, "A little more," and then finally the guy in the ring lays with enough money, and the guy's like, "All right," and then he goes in and beats the guy, right? So I pitched that kind of thought to Mosier.
Like
Yeah. And I pitched that to Mosier, and then, you know, they'd kind of morphed its way into, I'd be the muscle for the Greaser, and then he'd kind of have, you know, his thumb over me a little bit, and, you know, I'd kind of be the guy that doesn't really want to do the bad things, but I need the money for my family. And in this storyline, my dad was sick, and so, you know, because of that, you know, I'd do whatever it took, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so that's kind of the initial infancy.
What are your thoughts on how the first show went? AJ Styles wrestled JP in the main event.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like how well they drew and how the show?
I think they drew reasonably well.
They did.
Yeah, I think they drew reasonably well. You know, I worked greaser that night, which was fun.
Was there anybody running the locker room on those shows? Because it was a show before Pete would have showed up. Was Gary there?
Gary.
Like how was that? That was the only show I missed, so that's why.
Yeah. I don't know. Gary definitely didn't wrestle that night. He might have been backstage, but I mean, you know, I mean, the locker room we didn't really have anybody running it per se. You know, I mean, I didn't feel it was chaos, but everybody just kind of did their own thing. Yeah.
So I think the greaser said it was the third show that they brought in Colt Cabana.
Okay.
Did you? I'm going to assume you knew who Colt was ahead of time.
Ahead of the show, yes, but not too long.
Not too long.
Not too long before that. Yeah.
So when did you start to when they announced him? Did you go back and watch some of his stuff and research him and find out who he was?
Yep. Oh wait. Well, I mean, I heard about him like before he was even booked because you know Joey was always saying to Moser, "You got to get Colt. Got to get Colt." So I was like, "Well, who's Colt?" He's like, "Who's Colt?" Let me show you. You know. And then I quickly learned who Colt was.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I mean, I did know a decent amount about him before he came in.
Was that the first time you had worked with someone of his caliber? I know you were on the outside of that match.
No, actually.
Greaser was wrestling on that night.
I mean, you know, it's a whole different era, but I did get to wrestle Bushwhacker Luke twice for UCW.
Okay.
Yeah, which was good.
What? You talk about that?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was good. I mean, matches are terrible because of me. But yeah, a couple memories I have. One was, like everybody said, "Oh, when you get to the back, he's going to yell at you so much." He didn't really yell at me too much, so I was happy with that. I thought that was a win. And then I remember we locked up, he's like, locked up, brought me back to the corner. He's like, "Turn me around, choke me, mate." So I'm choking him, right? And I'm green, and I'm thinking, and I'm nervous as Bushwhacker Luke, and I'm not choking him super hard, but hard enough, harder than I should have been. It's like, "That's not how you choke somebody." He turns me around, he's lightly choking me, and he's like, "This is how you choke somebody. Now you do it to me." He turns me around, and then I can do it properly. He's like, "Yeah, that's how you do it." I'm like, okay, that's cool. Fun. Yeah.
Were you at the show where he bled like crazy? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I was at that
one. You
weren't
at the show? Okay.
No, nothing sticks in my mind.
It was a UCW show. Raven and Charlie Haas were on it.
I wasn't on any show with Raven.
Okay. So back to... What's that?
I said, or Charlie Haas.
It's the same show. Charlie Haas was super jacked. When he was there, machine.
I watched him in Gary's match. I think probably on
I filmed it, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the match Bushwhacker came out and got all kinds of juice in.
Oh, okay.
For no reason. But so the bringing in Colt, what were you thinking? Being able to work with someone like Colt, it's very different than Bushwhacker in my opinion. Like he's a young dude, wrestles all over the world, still at a very high level.
I just remember being very impressed. Like his confidence in front of the crowd, his way of controlling the crowd. Him working his comedy spots into a still serious match.
Yep.
I just thought it was great. Yeah.
And he put Joey over, put Greaser over that night too, right?
Yeah, some help.
What were your thoughts of getting in the ring with him, like in doing whatever you did?
Yeah, it was good.
Because he had no problem doing it either, right?
No, he didn't put up any fuss at all.
That's rare.
Yeah. No, it was good. We did the whole spot where I had enough of Greaser at the beginning of the night, so I kind of sided with Colt for the night, and then I'm Colt's manager out for the match, and then he wants to bring me in and get me, help me get a little bit of revenge against this guy that's been having me under his thumb all this time, and then I'm gonna get him. Are you gonna get him? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get him. You go grab him, and then Colt turns around and grab his arm. Sorry, Colt. Pick him up, slam him. It was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And when I said that's rare, I didn't mean from him. I meant from other people coming in and not wanting to lose. Colt never had a problem doing anything
exactly.
ever.
No, just wrestlers
just
in
want to get that
general.
out there just in case. Yeah,
Colt flies in.
I love Colt. How long after did you get to wrestle him? How many shows apart was that? Because he came in here 3 times. He wrestled Joey, he wrestled you, and he wrestled Dick, I think.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't too long after that I got to wrestle him. It was maybe 2 shows or
Okay,
something.
'cause-
I could be wrong on that, but it didn't seem like long anyway.
That was when I started reffing for
You know what? It had to be a little bit of time though,
Russell Center.
because I seen him the first time, and I was still wearing I was wearing it when I wrestled him too, but anyway, I was in considerably better shape when I wrestled Colt than what I was when Greaser wrestled Colt. Because I remember one of the really nice things, he's like, oh man, he's like, you look great by the way. I'm like, thanks.
This first time or the second time?
The second time I seen him,
time.
you look great, man. Because,
Yeah.
you know, so I was pretty, thought that was a really nice thing for him to say.
That was the night you wrestled him was the first night I reffed for Wrestle Center. I only, in the entire time I've ever been reffing, I've only ever asked the ref one match. I was a huge fan of Colt.
Yeah.
And I pulled
So
him
you
up.
reffed that match?
I did ref that match.
Oh, cool.
I remember walking between you
What
guys.
did you think?
Yeah, I loved it. I was like, I have to ref Colt, and Jason was like, he graciously let me do it. But what were your memories of now being able to wrestle Colt? You did a little outside the ring thing with him, like a few shows before, but now you're actually getting to wrestle someone of his caliber.
Yeah, I was just really excited at the thought of getting in there with him. You know, intimidated as well. You know, but the good thing is, if you're in there with a pro, you know, the easier it should be. You know?
Yeah.
And I learned a lot in that match actually. You know, like not to give away the business or anything like that, but like little things like his
I don't
lock.
have to worry about that. This whole thing.
Yeah. Like his lockup was like, if you watch it back, it looks great. But it was the softest lockup I've ever had in my life, and ever since then I've tried to imitate that to like make it look that snap and crisp, but not kill the guy. And it was awesome. 'Cause I grabbed him and I had a bit of a snap, and then like when he touched me, I was like, oh okay, we can relax a little bit. Yeah, it was good. That was really good. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all the names that Wrestle Center brought in? They took some flack for it on the internet from some veterans, quote unquote, hot shotting the territory.
Mm-hmm.
They had AJ Styles here a couple of times. Christopher Daniels was the champ. For
Sometimes people were unannounced.
Samoa Joe was unannounced.
And AJ was unannounced. Those are big names.
That's a lot of money. But what are your thoughts on that whole concept?
Looking back, I can totally see how it was hot shotting, because you watch how it played out. Because everybody said this is what's going to happen, and I had never really been in that situation before. But then, sure enough, what everybody said would happen happened exactly that. So I'm like, looking back, I'm thinking, hey, they must have hot shotted it, and that was a big part of it's kind of losing steam, right?
So you didn't think at the time though?
No, I just thought it was great. I was just like, we get butts in the seats, we're bringing people in. I get a chance to be part of these shows. I was just on the wave. I was riding it.
Who was your favorite person they brought in? You remember? They brought in Foley, Kurt Angle, Tommy Dreamer, Bobby Roode, AJ, Christopher Daniels, Lance Storm, Matt Sydal, Shelton Benjamin. That guy's a machine. I watched him throw Julian from one side of the ring to the other from like the top rope. I'm like, he's going to go out of the ring.
That would suck. Just so many good guys. Some of the things, like people I remember specifically.
Was Colt the only one you got to work with?
I worked with Colt in a match. Mick Foley punched me a couple times because I was with Greaser when he was wrestling Diggs in the street fight.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Okay.
But yeah, like a few memories of those guys. Like Foley is probably like the most humble guy that I can ever have met in wrestling. Like, here's this guy who has done everything under the sun and been everywhere in wrestling, and then it was Nick and Joey trying to work out their match, and then Foley, I'm sure he knew exactly what needed to be done, but he comes out at it in a way and says, we need to do something where we can kind of get, and he kind of led them along, and he didn't just, come in and say, this is what we're doing, and I remember thinking that was super, super cool. Who else? Christopher Daniels, that guy, his wit, he is one of the wittiest people I think I've met in wrestling. Like, fans would chirp him and he'd chirp them down 10 times harder right away. No hesitation. Some of the things he said, I was almost embarrassed to be standing near because there was like the VIP signing, and so he was set up and I just happened to be standing beside him. And yeah, anyone would chirp him, man, he would shut them down hard. Yeah.
I didn't realize he had been wrestling for as long as he did. I knew he was around for a long time, but he started in like '94 in like Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So did you were pushed fairly well in Wrestle Center? Was there anything promised to you in terms of titles or anything like that?
No promises.
Because you were pushed towards the
IHWC, which I do not know what it means.
I used to. I never knew what IFWA stood for. I interviewed Tyler one time and I forgot to ask him. But yeah, I don't know what it stood for either.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was weird because it was IHW. There's already an IHW, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And then the C, like championship.
Yeah, it was like, it was the IHW championship? I don't get this.
Yeah.
But they didn't tell you you were going to get that title or anything along those lines?
Like, you know, I knew obviously before I was put over that I was getting, you know, getting put over that night, but like it wasn't something from a long ways out that it's like, we're going to put the belt on you per se. And I mean, if that conversation did happen, it wasn't a substantial one that I really remember. It was just, you know, just kind of going through. Right?
They put it on you and took it off you like the same night, or something like that.
Something like I used an illegal move in the match, and then they stripped me, and then had to kind of keep chasing it.
Yeah, and then you broke the belt, or you
I
attempted
did.
to break the belt.
That was the last Wrestle Center show, I believe.
Okay.
Or last or second last, anyway. No, I broke that belt. Oh yeah, I made sure of it. Yeah.
Then the idea was that they were going to bring in a new belt, I believe.
Yeah, they had a new belt set up and never really got to debut it, I don't think. But
so what did you think? Like, they never actually put the belt on you. You didn't have any problems with that or anything? I mean, like, you were, in my opinion, probably one of the hardest working people that they had. One of the most loyal. You did every show, but yet you never. They seemed to push other people ahead of you. You never had any. I had problems with that. You never had any problems with that?
No. You know, I didn't. You know, I mean, I learned. You know, one of the things that Gary drilled in my head and everyone else's head is that, you know, you can't be afraid to put somebody over. You know, you can't let that.
No, that's not what I mean. Yeah. I mean the position on the card that they had you in, as opposed to some other people. Yeah,
I mean, no, not really. I mean, you know, as long as I kept getting booked and you know, getting to work against guys that were actually, you know, safe in there, you know, that was a big thing for me.
What were your thoughts? Had you met Brody Steele before Wrestle Center?
Before Wrestle Center, I hadn't met Brody Steele. I don't think so.
What were your thoughts on when you heard he was coming in? Because he didn't do the first one, but he did the second one and a bunch afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I was excited. You know, I was nervous because, you know, his reputation precedes him for sure, right? And but I was definitely happy to have him because you know, it says a lot if he's on your show. You know what I mean? Like it's he doesn't just jump on to any show. You know, it's almost like a stamp of approval if Pete's on your show. So yeah, I was happy.
Do you notice the locker room different when he's in it as opposed to when he's not in it? As opposed to maybe certain people being like a bunch of people that shouldn't be in it. Oh,
yeah, if you're talking about fans and things being in the locker room,
just like the whole dynamic, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, people listen to what Pete says. I'll put it that way. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you know, and if that's also with like. Pete will tell you very quickly if he thinks something's not the way it should be, and so you combine those two traits, and yeah, the locker room, if there was anyone there that shouldn't have been there, or people doing anything they shouldn't be doing, you know, that gets straightened out quickly.
Did you ever wrestle Pete?
Yes.
I thought so. Where was that?
That was, I think, the Cosmo in Moncton there.
For IHW?
IHW,
okay.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that? Let's go there so we don't forget about it.
You know, I was nervous, very nervous for the match. The match got cut short. There was a spot that I knew the spot, but I thought something else was called, so I went with what I thought was called. Was wrong, and then Pete, you know, lost confidence in me in the match. He's like, this guy can't protect me if he can't remember that spot, which don't blame him for thinking that at all. Yeah. And then so, you know, we were supposed to do this whole thing at the end, but he just brought me to the ropes, choke slam, don't break it. But I do remember though, I give him the best jump I give anybody in my life because I was able to get a really good push, so I went way up.
Nice. Yeah. Did he say anything afterwards about the match or anything?
Yeah. you know, he told me his reasoning of cutting it short, which
Yep.
again, totally agree. And the other thing was, he messaged me later that night, and he was cool. He said, I give you some really stiff shots out there, but you didn't say anything. He said, I'm in your corner, kid. Next time we'll go 20.
Awesome.
And so yeah, I
That's
thought
good.
that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the second last or last Russell Center show, you break the title. Did you know Tommy Dreamer and Bullen were in the main event that night? Did you know at that point that was going to be the last Russell Center show?
No.
No?
No.
What were your thoughts when you heard that they weren't going to run any more shows?
You know what? I never actually, to this day, have heard that. It was, I believe that would have been in like March or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that, you know, March happens, and I think somewhere around June, they had still not wrestled any or put on any more shows, and so I thought to myself, well, hey, like, this is crazy. I need to wrestle.
Yeah.
You know, so I give Chuck a call and told him I wanted to wrestle. Yeah.
And Chuck had no problem bringing you back, or did, because they? I remember, in my opinion, it's dumb. You may think differently. You wrote something on Facebook saying you weren't wrestling for Wrestle Center anymore. You're wrestling for UCW now. Did they tell you to do
Chuck
that?
told me, yeah.
Okay.
That was the stipulation. That was the thing. He said, if you were to come back, you need to go on your Facebook and you need to say to everybody that you're not, you know, wrestling for Wrestle Center. And you know, and I messaged Jason and I said, hey man, like, you know, thank you for everything.
Yeah.
But bottom line, I need to wrestle. In order to do that, you know, you're not running any shows, so I'm going to UCW. In order to go to UCW, I need to say that I'm not wrestling anymore, so I'm going to. And
Did while you were wrestling with Wrestle Center, did they ever tell you that you couldn't wrestle for other people?
sorry, what was this again?
When you were wrestling
wrestling?
for Wrestle Center,
Yeah.
did they ever tell you that you couldn't wrestle for other companies?
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
Foolishness, really.
Yeah.
You know, there were lots of times where I thought about going to other places, you know, knowing that I would have been kind of tarnished from Wrestle Center and things like that. My mentor in wrestling is Gary Williams, and you know, I would have these conversations with him, and you know, and he wouldn't agree with the rule or whatever the stipulation that they had either. But he said, you know what? He's like, you know, you're getting TV time. You're in a pretty good spot on the card. You know, you're as far as kind of getting your face out there, you know, like that's a really good place right now. So, you know, he's like, if I were you, I would just kind of stick it out and go. Now, unfortunately, along with that, I got painted as this die-hard, loyal Wrestle Center person that must hate everybody else because I'm still at Wrestle Center. But I wanted to work everywhere else just as much as the next guy. But again, you know, I'll take advice. If it's someone I really respect, gives me advice like that, you know, I'll listen to them, and you know, the chips will fall where they may. And for me, it was a lot of lost bookings. There were a lot of bookings I probably could have had, but you know, it's that is what it is.
So you called Chuck that summer. How did those conversations go, aside from him telling you to write that on Facebook?
Yeah, other than that, you know, it was fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you originally come back as Tommy Starr, or did you come back immediately as Kent Gentleman?
No, came back as Tommy Starr for a bit.
Why did you change from Tommy Starr to Kent Gentleman?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, like, Tommy Starr, I didn't have any kind of foundation as Tommy Starr. I was just a name. Who was Tommy Starr? Why should you boo or why should you cheer? You know, there wasn't really any of those things. I had always heard, you know, people say that your wrestling persona is supposed to be your own personality kind of turned up to 11 and all these things. And so I was like, oh man, like, you know, well, who am I? That's a whole other life question, right? But, you know, it's like, well, you know, everyone's always told me I'm a nice guy and, you know, and polite and
Nicest
all
guy in
these things.
wrestling.
There you go, right? And so I was like, you know what? Okay, fine. I'll be Mr. Nice Guy. I remember the night debuting the gimmick, people were like, oh yeah, Chip tried that gimmick before because his name's Bradley Nice. And I was like, what? I can't believe I'm ripping him off. But yeah, so Mr. Nice Guy was born, you know. Mr. Nice Guy was now someone who, you know, seen the world as something that, you know, they're not measuring up, they're not nice enough, and so I will step out of that niceness to make you nice, kind of a thing. And even if it wasn't a lot, it was something more to build on.
Right.
Yeah.
So you enjoyed doing it?
I did,
for the
yeah.
short time
The
that you
handful
did
of
it?
matches,
Yeah.
that I did.
So you didn't do that for very long, and then you stopped. Why did you stop? And you haven't wrestled since. Come back, damn it. No. Well, why did you stop wrestling?
Yeah.
And when that was like 2016?
Nope,
17?
it was July 2017
17.
that I stopped. Yeah, so it was weird, man. So earlier, it was either late June or early July that I was just sitting at work, and it was just kind of like a light bulb moment. I didn't sit there and premeditate it per se, but it's just like boom, like I think I'm done with wrestling. Like I think the effort that I'm putting into it, you know, it just kind of is not enough that I'm getting out of it, and I think I'm done. And it took me a little bit to kind of wrestle through that. I was booked on a tour with Cabo and My Q's booked me on a tour, and I remember messaging Gary specifically before the tour. I was like, dude, I'm telling you all this stuff that's on my mind now, that I'm wrestling through this decision of, you know, being done with wrestling. It's looking like I'm gonna, you know, try to hang it up.
Is that the TCW tour?
No. It was, I want to say Red Rock.
Okay.
I want to say Red Rock. Anyway, I was like, Gary, I'm telling you this now, so you don't think that something terrible happened on the tour. It just kind of turned me away from wrestling, right? And and so I did the tour, did all the dates that I had committed to, and my last booking was UCW show actually shortly after that tour. And then after that, I was going to try to get it out of my system again. Now, it hasn't been that long, you know. You never know when it'll come back. It was just a couple weeks ago now. There's a training school. Troy has a school going, and a bunch of people were working out and stuff up there. And the wrestling itch had hit me really bad, so I went up to the school to work out a little bit, just to get a feel for things and you know, see how things were. But it was good. It scratched the itch. You know, it was enough to say, you know, like to especially with the level of talent that the Maritimes is, you know, progressing into, to be someone that could step back into a role that should be in the ring, to step back in as a wrestler who should be in there. It would take so much work. I mean, you know, I don't know how many of you know, your viewers know, but the talented workers in the Maritimes, like, they're talented for a reason. They work extremely hard, and yeah, it takes a lot of work. It's not something that you can just kind of go back into on a whim. Like, I joked with you the other day, right? New Scott, I was like, you know, I've been away for a couple of years, and like, even though, you know, when I left, I was at a point where I felt pretty competent in there. You know, I'm rusty as anything right now. You know, it's not something you can just do on a whim.
That's not true. I saw you when Emily ran that seminar at the beginning of December of last year. You and Justin got in there for just a few, like, not that long, maybe like 5 minutes, and you didn't miss a step, man. You could, like, take a couple of hours, a couple of days, spend at the ring, and you could be right where you left off if you wanted to come back.
Yeah.
I think every time there's a show, I tell you to come back. It's not going to stop now either.
No, I know. Make it worse.
But so you don't, right? You still no plans. You still like.
Still no plans to come back right now. No. I mean, like you know, a couple weeks ago, the itch was strong. Like, I was having thoughts of coming back, you know, against my better judgment. The thoughts were like, this is stupid, you're going to beat up your body, you're not going to get anything out of this, you're just doing it for your own selfish enjoyment because you like being a wrestler and being out there. But yeah, I was able to kind of get another reality check and be like, okay, I got the itch scratched, I'm good for now.
I have a bunch of fan questions here.
What? Fan questions.
Fan questions, if you're game.
Of course.
Screw the fans, Kent Gentleman stuff.
Screw you!
I'm just going to wait till they load up here. I never read these ahead of time.
Oh, good.
So here we go.
Your live filter right now.
Oh, yeah. Some of them are usually pretty good. Jim Joyce.
Jimmy!
First, James is one of the best guys I've met in the business, if not life. Thanks for being exactly who you are. Now tell us about the bump you took. Tell us about the bump you took working Dyson Spryfield over the top rope to the floor.
Yeah,
that's something I wanted to ask you about that I forgot. You did that bump like a lot.
Yeah.
Like you to the floor. Like,
Yeah.
why? That's crazy.
I've always been very confident in my back bump. I've always had a really good break
And
fall.
so people get this. If you don't know, there's no mats. It's just concrete floor. He's falling on.
Yeah, just concrete, no big deal. So I'm working in Lumberjack Johnson, and I had like a handful of friends at the match, and I thought to myself, I'm going to impress my friends. I'm going to take a really gnarly bump with this. So I knew the line over the rope spot was coming, and I could have easily landed on my feet and just staggered down, but I was like, no, let's just crack this. So if you're on YouTube, New Scott, you have it on your channel.
Yeah.
Tommy Starr and Lumberjack Johnson, and I don't know, a couple minutes into the match, splat.
Thought he was dead. That comment was liked by Madison and your mom. That bump was Scott and Sarah used to do, just not from the top, but just used to take the bump on the floor on the concrete like every night during real action wrestling. I'm like, you guys are ridiculous. Like, that's not cool. Like, I mean, it's amazing for me to watch, but that's gotta suck. Like, gotta suck. Greaser.
Hey.
Ask him about his long lost brother, Dean Kane.
Dean Kane.
Liked by a lot of people. Dave Boyce, Dwight Griffith, Chris Glydian, Ryan Durnford, and Vance Bezanson.
Okay, yeah, Vance Bezanson. I haven't seen that guy since, unless it's a different Vance Bezanson. Maybe it is.
He's a wrestling fan.
Okay, it's not the same Vance Bezanson then.
You know someone else with that same name?
It was a Vance. I think it was Vance Benvie. I was thinking, not Bezanson. Yeah, went to high school with Vance Benvie. I was like, what the heck? Anyway, people say I look like Dean Kane, and I'm not offended by that. There's a lot of other people that I'd nothing wrong with looking like Dean Kane.
Nothing wrong with looking like Superman.
Yeah, that's right. Especially when I slick my hair over more. Maybe.
Madison Miles.
Maddie.
What did you think of your time helping train at Gary's school? Did you do any learning yourself? P.S. I appreciate you always. Heart emoji.
Oh, thanks, Maddie. Yeah, that was a good time. It was a good learning experience for me. Trying to just kind of follow along with any of Gary's classes. Sometimes I'd be there trying to keep things organized and rolling if Gary wasn't able to make it, and I thought it was good. Shelley
Brown, what's your favorite kind of ice cream?
I was gonna say there's an ice cream comment in there somewhere. Someday we'll go for ice cream, Shelley. My favorite, it's got to be just chocolate.
Yeah,
chocolate ice cream.
That's a good choice.
Yeah.
The Sabotage got a question about hot dogs, not from Shelley, from someone else.
Weird.
Yeah. Like I said, there's always different questions here. Dave Boyce has a couple questions here. The first one is, whatever happened to the herring choker? And he posted a graphic of the herring choker.
That's not the herring choker. That's just...
It's not going to focus.
Oh, that probably looks better than what it actually was. Yeah. Yeah, man, the herring choker, I'm very happy that was a one and done.
You only did it the one time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That
was enough.
His next question is, your mom likes all of these questions with a different emoji face.
She knows it.
It's awesome. It's awesome. No, but she's shocked at this next one. Ask him about his gambling addiction in Las Vegas.
My non-existent gambling addiction's more like it. No, they always give me a hard time, spending like, I think the first year I went to Vegas in 2015, I spent like $20 gambling. The next year, I think it was like $50.
Yeah.
And then I think the 2 years after that it was around $100 or so.
Going up every year.
It is.
Watch yourself.
Yeah, so, it's very gradual, but so.
Peter Smith, Brody Steele.
What?
Uh-oh.
I'm nervous. This interview's over.
Yeah. Did I change your mind on everything once you believed to be true that night in Charlottetown?
Can you read that again, please?
Did he change your mind on everything that you once believed to be true that night in Charlottetown?
I don't know. I mean, it was.
Do you know what he's talking about?
Well, it had to be our match. I mean, that's the only, probably the only time that we really chatted that much. I mean, I think the thing that would have changed at that point was, basically, this is I knew wrestling was a serious business, but wrestling is absolutely serious business. That's the first time I had in a match where I missed one spot that I didn't do anything dangerous whatsoever.
Right.
It was just a small miscommunication, but that was enough. Boom, call it.
Yeah,
Done, finish.
that's his life.
Exactly,
Like,
right?
That's how he feeds his family.
100%. And so if that's kind of what he was referring to, absolutely, my mind changed. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, I'm very thankful for that. Yeah.
I think that was right around the time he was getting ready to go over to India, maybe for the first time.
Probably,
somewhere around
Don't
there.
drop me on my head, kid.
Cody Brown.
Hey, yo.
Young blood Cody Blade. How's your knee? In quotation marks. Oh dear God.
That's a good story. So I gotta fill people in on that one. So yeah, training at the ring. We're doing up and overs, and Cody's in the corner. I run in, pops me up over. You know, it's going good. I'm thinking actually in the air, because I've been practicing it a few times before and messing it up. And in the air, I'm like, oh, that was a good one, because I got lots of good height. When I landed, my knee was twisted, and whack, and I just, oh dear God. So, actually, it wasn't dear God, I just screamed, oh God! And crumpled down to the mat in terrible pain. And they're like, oh, is he selling? And they're like, no, he's selling too good, he's not selling.
Call the ambulance.
No, I drove myself to the hospital that night.
Was that at the old school or the...
That was probably on Mosier Drive in Dartmouth, I think.
It's kind of
Yes,
weird that the
yes.
Russell Center School is on Mosier Drive.
It is weird,
And the
yeah.
promoter's name is Jason Mosier.
Yeah,
You think
yeah.
you planned that?
Well, I guess it was just off Mosier Drive technically, I think, but still, you turn on a Mosier
funny.
Drive to get there. Yeah.
Jeannie Parsons.
JD.
Will you ever return to wrestling? And if so, what company would you like it to be in?
Good question. Good question. I guess the answer to the first question is I don't know. You know, there's some days where I say I hope so, other days I say I hope not.
He'll come back.
So yeah, I don't know on that one. And which company would I like to be in? That's a good question. You know, I'd hate to tie myself to a company, you know.
Yeah.
UCW is close to me, right? You know, a lot of their shows are very close to me, so that would be very convenient. IHW is doing a lot of great things. They just had an awesome show this past weekend there. They get a lot of good stuff in the works, so I mean, you know, either one of those two promotions would be great. I mean, like say UCW is closer, but I mean, what's a 2-hour drive? That's nothing. So.
Jordan Talbot, why do you think Wrestle Center failed?
Why do I think? Well, it had come down to money, I'm thinking, you know. I really don't know a lot of the ins and outs as far as what went on, so, you know, I could be wrong, but as we talked about earlier in the interview, you know, there was a lot of big stars to come in, and there wasn't always the people in the seats to back it up, and even when we had good crowds, we got those good crowds because of those really expensive stars. Yeah. So, you know, I know if there was money being poured in, I can't see why they would have stopped. Well, you know, but there's more aspects to that too, though. Wrestle Center, they were their own worst enemies as far as etiquette with the boys and trying to tell the local wrestlers what to do and what not to do, and it really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and they said, screw you, we're not wrestling for you anymore. So their talent pool really dwindled, and that's probably another big reason why it didn't continue, is because, you know, they would have to bring in guys from far out of province just to have somewhat of a card together because all the local guys pulled out. So yeah.
Do you know if like the Vince Russo stuff was true?
I don't.
You don't know?
I've heard, you know, like I for the longest time I thought it wasn't true, and then I've heard that some people like had been there or almost been there for the Skype conversations and stuff.
We've heard the same stories.
But I really don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
there was rumors for, you know what I'm talking about. There was rumors that Vince Russo was helping write the Wrestle Center.
Yeah,
shows,
yeah. I mean, you know, and if that's the case, I'm sure that wasn't cheap either, right? You know.
That might explain the etiquette too.
Maybe.
Ryan Durnford, Damien Spades.
Hey-o.
He's got a couple questions here, all related to the same thing. What's your favorite Simpsons episode?
Ooh, yes.
What's your favorite Simpsons episode, quote, and why?
Okay, cool. My favorite Simpsons episode. Oh man, there's so many good ones. I would have to say either You Never Blink Twice, Homer's Enemy, Those are two episodes that are both very good.
I love that you know this.
And favorite quote, there are so many good ones. One that I always think of, though, is it's a good Mr. Burns quote, where Homer and Burns, they're in their ski cabin. They made it there first because they cheated, and they're kicked back and they're having some snacks. And Homer says, "You know, Mr. Burns, you're the richest guy I know." And Mr. Burns says, "Yes, and I trade it all for a little more."
That's funny. You kind of answered this next one. Connor Smith says, how was it wrestling Brody Steele so early in your career?
Yeah. Terrifying, but educational. Yeah. Terrifying and educational. Those are two words.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Kevin Poirier, when will we see you back in a Maritime Wrestling ring? You're getting that question a lot. You're missed, buddy. See, it's not just me.
You're tweeting out, everyone tell him to come back, even if you don't want him to. Yeah, Kev, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Grant Mader.
Grant Mader.
Do you know Grant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ask him. Okay, you must get this maybe. It could be an inside joke. Could Jesus microwave a burrito so hot that he himself could not eat it?
So that's a Simpsons line.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it might
that
be.
was Homer's question to Flanders era.
That made Peter laugh with the laugh emoji.
Yeah, of course it did, Pete. Yeah. That's a good question. I'm going to say that Jesus can do whatever he wants to do.
That's funny. Clyde Froughton. Will we see Mr. Nice Guy Kent Gentleman make a return, and when? Buddy, the fans have spoken.
Oh my.
The next question is the same thing.
Twisting my hair.
Brian Thompson, will you make a comeback? Man, you get a lot of those. Kirk Ubey.
Kirk!
What hair gel brand do you use?
I have some Dippity-Doo Sport in my bathroom right now. It's pretty low key.
That's funny. I think that might have been the last one. Let's see.
Sorry, ending on a solid note. Kirk's a good dude.
Yeah, that's the last fan question here. All right. Now this is these next questions are from me. I've talked about this with a lot of people. Don't think I've ever mentioned it to you. This was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this interview, was because of this question.
I think I know what you're going to ask, because you might have asked me these questions before.
Maybe I did. There's a lot. You helped a lot at Gary Williams Training School.
Yep.
Not a lot of people know that you helped train a lot of people in the territory right now, but not necessarily a lot of them give you the credit for it. They always say trained by Gary, trained by Gary.
Yep.
I've talked to quite a few people, and they're like, these people aren't, you don't have to say who they are, these people aren't necessarily trained by Gary, they're trained by James, but they always say trained by Gary. What are your thoughts on that? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean...
Is that what you thought I was going to ask?
Nope.
Okay.
I thought this was the question you had before, where it's like, what are your thoughts on an effort a wrestler should perform in the gym, in training, in the ring, all these things.
I've talked about this with a lot of people.
It makes me uncomfortable, to be honest.
In what way?
Well, I mean, I have mixed emotions, because I know my place in wrestling, and the long and the short of it is I was, compared to people who should be training people, very green, right? And so that makes me uncomfortable to have anybody go and say that I trained them. I did what I was asked to do. Gary had his school. A lot of the time he wasn't able to make it. I did my very best in the meantime and showed people things the best I knew how, and kind of went from there. So whether that's I did a lot of the training or not, which sometimes I did, I never I will say, I never showed anything without Gary's blessing. Like before, any time Gary wasn't able to make it, I would always ask Gary, what do you want to show them? What should I do? What is your kind of outline for what this should be? That kind of a thing. So there's that, and I would always tell people, as far as you mentioned, they're not giving you credit. Well, if any of them came up to me and said, hey, should I tell people you trained me? I say, tell people Gary trained you. His name was the name on the school. Gary train you? And it's not that I'm ashamed of anybody. I'm proud of all of them. But again, it's not going to do them any service, and it's just going to get me a bunch of heat.
You know, and that's extremely fair way to put that.
Yeah.
I always wondered what you thought of it, because a lot of people think it's unfair that you don't get the credit. And I do as well, but I completely understand your point, right?
Yeah.
They're going to know who Gary is, and they're not necessarily going to know who you are.
And I mean, and and it doesn't matter to me.
Do they give you the credit to you personally? Like, if you were to talk to them?
Yeah.
That's extremely important as well.
Yeah, I've always felt respected.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And, and I know what work and efforts I've made, and watching them go through and succeed and things like that, like that makes me very happy as well. And so, I don't, it doesn't matter if anyone out there in the wrestling, fans and everything like that know, but I know what I've done. They know the times where I've tried to help, and I've always been respected. So no, I have no issues.
Good. And I just think that people should know like how hard you worked to help the generation of wrestlers that are here now, because I don't think it's something that a lot of people know, and you worked as hard, if not harder, than a lot of people to get a bunch of the new talent ready. Yeah. And I'm sure you still would if you were around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I will say, like, there's some really, they're in good hands now, with Troy running his schools, and I haven't been to too many of the classes, but Covey is very helpful with Troy and his schools, and even just going up for training and things like that. Like, that's a pretty huge deal. Those guys know what they're talking about. So
good. All right. Now, before social media was a thing, I've asked everybody this question. The maritime wrestling scene seemed to draw more people on a more consistent basis. You may not have attended the shows, but you saw the advertising.
I did, yeah.
You saw the advertising for it on like Eastlink, but Grand Prix Wrestling back in the 90s and 80s and whatever drew really large crowds on a very consistent basis. Real Action Wrestling was pretty much the last promotion to do it on a consistent basis. They draw one or two big crowds here a year, but that's not on a consistent basis. Now that social media has become a thing, there's more avenues for people to be able to advertise, but they're not drawing the crowds that they used to. Why do you think that is? You think they would be drawing more because there's more ways to get the word out to people?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Like, I mean, it's a whole
answers.
Marketing study on its own, I'm sure. But like, I could see one issue being that, it's almost like, I look at it this way. If I'm in the desert and I'm dying of thirst and someone gives me a bottle of water, great, right? That's a good thing. And I kind of look like at that, before social media, you see an advertisement, like you don't see a lot of advertisement per se, so it means more. Where if I'm in the desert and I get hit with a tsunami, like that's not going to do me any good. And I almost think like there's so much content out there that, when everybody's targeting you, whether it's, fertilizer company or a wrestling company, like everybody wants to get in your pocket, and there's so many avenues. It's sometimes hard to make that difference. So.
Do you think there's a way to get the big crowds back on a consistent basis?
I think it needs to be something like organic, and you need to have a sense of community in it. I think
something like Mike does in PEI. You mean, like where he's in the community all the time? Or
no? Well, I mean that's I'm not taking anything away from that. but when I say community, almost like when it means something to be a fan of a certain promotion, us together, we are fans and we're supporting, and this is kind of what's going on.
Kind of like ECW's fan base type.
Yeah, almost like that, and you'd have to start slow, but if you could kind of like, have something, build up your local guys, promote them in a respectful way, do what Mike's doing, be involved in the community, and start to basically be associated with the culture of that community, and I think that would bring more support. Like look at Hockeyville and things like that, and some of the things that people rally around and support like that.
I think having Mike part of the Charlottetown Islanders, like he does all the pregame and intermission stuff, like on the mic in front of the thousands of people, right? And I think having him embedded in that community helps them out like tremendously. I always wish there was some way we could get someone to do that here for the Mooseheads, like just could you imagine in front of like 10,000 people or whatever it is, be like, hey, this is from whatever, like so and so from from UCW or so-and-so
Yeah.
from Red Rock Wrestling or IHW or
huge.
Maritime Wrestling in general, right?
Yep.
Get somebody there. It would be huge, but Mike's done that so smart. Who's the best wrestler you ever seen? In person, on television? When I said that, who was the very first person that came to your mind?
I don't know.
You just drew a blank?
Yeah, I did. I was like, I'm like, oh no, there's so many wrestlers.
Who's your favorite person to watch? Like, if you were going to go put on a match right now,
Yeah.
who would you be like, this is...
I'll tell you, I don't know if this is either here nor there, but the match I watched the other week, that just got me dying to get into the ring again was Nick Bonkwinkel and Ric Flair.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
AWA or
this was
NWA?
This was it was AWA.
Yep.
Buddy Lane was actually the referee.
Did he mess up the finish? He messed up the finish at one of my shows.
No, he didn't mess up the finish on this one. No.
Gary got a 12 count off the Wild Driver.
Cool. But yeah, I don't know. Ric Flair. Everybody says Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, things like that. But I just love that old school style. Not that they never called spots per se or had anything planned, but they knew how to position their bodies, just to have that flow and that fight and that kick and scratch and bite and let's go and it's so believable, and it's just awesome to watch. So.
I remember what I was going to say now. Before this question, we were talking about local wrestling. I was going to say that, to be fair, UCW and both IHW are doing a tremendous job of it right now.
Yes.
Compared to, especially UCW in Halifax. Just a couple of years ago, they were drawing 30, 35 people.
Yes,
and a year after that, they were drawing 1,200. I don't know what the percentage on that, but it's huge.
It's a lot.
What company in any line of business in a year can turn that around, right? So they're clearly doing it. They're just not doing it every show, right?
Yeah.
And that was my next question. Do you think every show should be a big show? Ring of Honor, all their shows are big shows. Here we have one big show a year. Do you think UCW only runs once a month in Halifax, right? Once a month in Moncton. Do you think all of those shows should and could be promoted as huge shows, and why aren't they?
I don't see any reason why they couldn't be. Promoted as something that you're proud of, that's going to be big and exciting to go to. If I'm promoting a game to you and I said, come to the silver medal game, you're not going to want it, but you want to go to the gold medal game. So, promoted is a big deal. You don't have to make it, you don't have to be lying to people or anything foolish like that. But if you're not excited about it, how is anyone else going to get excited about it?
Yeah, I always felt like every show should be a big show. I think every show should be the biggest show you could possibly make it, right? If you're drawing and making money, that is. If you're not, then that's another story. But if you're drawing and making money, put that money in and make your next show even bigger. Yep. That's my opinion. I was just
look out, Vince.
I always wondered other people's opinion on that. Or should the small shows should they only have one big show a year? Can the market not take a big show every month, right? Who knows?
I don't know. Yeah, if you're depends on your admission prices and things like that too.
The ticket prices have gone way up for local wrestling compared to back in the day. It used to be $10 when I went.
Yeah.
And now they're sometimes $50 for VIP and everything along those lines. They're still drawing, so it's great. But what would happen if they cut that in half? Yeah. Would they draw twice as many people?
That's a good question.
Still make the same amount of money?
Or would it lose value in the franchise?
Right.
Who knows?
It's such a crazy thought. Who do you think is the best wrestler in the Maritimes right now? Doesn't have to be who's your favorite guy to watch. I don't mean who's the best technical wrestler. Who's the guy you enjoy watching the most?
Yeah. Lately it's been Covey.
Okay.
Titus and Mike Hughes are always really, really good to watch. Those are some of the top ones just off the top of my head. If you name everybody, you name nobody, right? But those are some of the ones. And I said Covey first just because he's really starting to hit his stride and learn who he is as a wrestler, and that's really fun to watch. Yeah, and the fact that I know the guy and have trained with him tons, you know, it's good to see your friends succeed, right?
Yeah. You don't have any plans to get back in right now? Like nothing coming up? Nothing can make you
I'm sorry, man.
come back to the shows?
I've said it like this. I've said I've never used the word retirement. You know, I tried that back in 2006. You know, I'm retired from wrestling. That's it. Because, you know, we all know how wrestling retirements go. So I don't want that. I don't want to eat my words someday. My answer is just I always say I don't know if I'm coming back. I'll be honest to say I have no plans to. I'm kind of hoping that I'll be smart enough to be able to stay away from wrestling, because it does have a lot of high costs.
Yeah.
And but I don't know if I can. You know, there's no, for me, so far in my life, I've had no bigger adrenaline rush than in front of the crowd performing. So with that, there is that gnawing feeling that comes around sometimes.
So you had, at one point, you made a video to like get booked at some promotion in Vegas that was gonna like be some quote shoot style wrestling promotion or something.
I don't know how shoot it was.
It was like Shane Douglas was involved or something.
Yeah, Shane Douglas and
nothing ever came from that. Did they ever run?
As far as I know, they have run at least one show, but it looked like they've partnered with somebody else. This was Classic Wrestling Revolution.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, when I wrestled Jake the Snake was talking about that promotion like any second he got and how big and awesome it was going to be. So I was like, well, cool, let me try to get on with these guys. So I sent them some stuff. They said they were going to bring me down for a tryout. Nothing really came of it. Looking back, you know, good enough, you know, because I was ready to, on a you know, wing and a prayer, go down to Vegas and and have at her, right? But yeah.
We both, during the interview, forgot to talk about Jake. I asked you if you had worked any other names other than Colt, and you said no, and just said Bushwhacker.
See, and what did I tell you? What did I tell you before this interview started? I'm not going to remember anything.
So, what are your memories of working with Jake? That's a pretty big deal. He's a fairly huge star.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a Hall of Famer. You know? Yeah. Working with Jake.
That was in Cape Breton, right?
Yep. That was in the Member 2 Convention Center. And yeah, good memories working with Jake. You know, it was interesting backstage at the time. You know, there's lots of you know, kerfuffles going on that way. But as we talked about, I don't care if I win or lose or what have you. So I told Jake, I'm like, yeah, Jake. So I'm told this is what's happening for the match. Bip, bip, bip. I kind of lay it out. He goes, that ain't happening. I'm like, okay. Yeah, I remember how much pain Jake was in. Like, you know, the days before the match, he was in bad need of a hip replacement, and so he could barely get around backstage. But when it came time to go, you know, he came through that curtain, and he wasn't moving like a cat, but he wasn't limping around dying like he was backstage, you know. And yeah, I remember being very impressed by that, and I remember getting the short arm clothesline and slowly feeding up, knowing I was going to get the DDT, just thinking like this is really awesome. And then you know, the pop when he hit that DDT, it was you know, they were popping for him, but I felt it, and it felt really good. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any closing comments for any friends, family, or fans that might be watching this?
Yeah, first off, like anyone who sent questions in, that was a nice surprise. Thanks.
You got more questions than anybody else.
Maybe. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure you did.
Yeah, so that was a nice surprise. Thank you for that. It's nice to hear that there's a few people that you know, might be interested in seeing it come back. That's really cool. Yeah, and you know, thanks for all the support that I've been given. You know, it's I know I've had a kind of a spotted career. You know, little spurts here and there, but it's been a blast, and I will continue to where I can support the scene and play a part somehow. So, thanks.
Oh, there's at least one more question.
Whoa!
Hold on.
Record breaking.
Let's see. See if I can find it here. Oh, here we go. Jason Langell. Will you be wrestling again soon? We've already covered that.
Yeah.
For what promotion? We've covered that.
6 times.
What? People want you back, buddy.
I guess.
What do you consider your best match? We didn't cover that, I don't think.
Good question. What do I consider my best match? Well, trouble with that is a lot of my matches I haven't got to watch back yet. A lot of the Wrestle Center matches I haven't really been able to access. So my hope is...
Come on, Jason.
Yeah, I will say, Jason has told me, he's like, for you, I'll make an exception. I'll try to get your matches to you. But I mean, both busy people haven't really made that time. But I would love to sometime have a kind of a chronology of all the matches I've done for Wrestle Center, including all the backstage bits and things.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet.
That would be really cool. I want to have, someday have kids to show that to and things. That'd be cool. But
off the top of your head,
yeah. So, well, one of the ones that's kind of fresh in my mind is a match I had with Nick Diggs for Wrestle Center. That was a fun match. It was that one, last I checked, was still available on the Bell Community One website under the wrestling section for Wrestle Center. You just go back a few episodes, and the match just started really hot, really fast paced. Which at the time it made a lot of sense because we were building into a pretty good feud. It wouldn't make sense for us to just go in there and have a standard lockup, go into a hammerlock or something like that. We were ready to kill each other. And yeah, I think that was a very fun match and fun to watch back. It has fast enough of a pace where I'm not going to be sitting there fast forwarding through parts or anything, showing my friends.
And he's got more questions.
All right.
Do you feel the Maritimes has too many small promotions, or do you feel that the market is big enough for more promotions?
I don't think you need more promotions. I really don't. Especially if you really put your thinking cap on and you think of all the ones that are out there, you definitely don't need more. I think people need to learn how to work together, and also, with that, have some patience. You can't put everybody on every show. So why don't you work together and try to figure out a way to, almost like, WB, they have like their NXT and they put so many people down there, and they have so many people on the Raw and the SmackDown. Like UCW has got a good thing going where they'll have the VIP, and then they'll have a couple of the, the main roster, so to speak, people come down, and do a match and surprise the fans there. And like, I think that's a great idea. So yeah, I wouldn't say more promotions, just I'd like to see more cooperation.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Well, I would like to thank you for taking the time out tonight to do this interview with me. It was a long time coming. I've been trying to get you to do this for a long time now. Over the past few years, I think we've got to know each other fairly well.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, we chat and talk a lot. Like a lot of the guys that you see at shows or whatever, but we talk and stuff outside of shows. You're a super nice guy. You remind me so much, like I said before, of Scott Savage.
Yeah.
You're literally like the same human being. And me and Scott were... I could have no doubt you could do that. Me and Scott were super close, and he left, and then you showed up, and I'm like, wow, it's the same person. Like, how did this happen? So I want to thank you for all that, and thanks for taking the time out to sit down and talk with me tonight. I really enjoyed this interview, and I think the fans are going to love it a lot if they sit down and watch the whole thing. It was you gave a lot of really good stories and gave a lot of really good information, I thought.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.